Monday. Welcome into another edition of Three Man Front. Conrad, Landrum, and Molly.
Slow your roll there, Captain.
Today.
You're just way too excited to be on the air.
I am too excited.
I was going to let the music play for another 45 seconds.
I just wanted you to have time to get,
There's no way now with Google Chrome. You got to help me figure something out here on this computer. It takes me 10 minutes to get into the thing.
I know.
And I don't think it's a
just trying to
cumulus
help you
thing.
out.
I think it's something that I've done with my personalized Google Chrome account.
Well, that's what happens when you look up certain things and you start getting denied access.
That has nothing to do
certain...
with it. No, do not paint me with that brush. I'm way past that. And anything like that, I might have accidentally stumbled upon and had to complete certain required training at a corporate level. Those days are behind me. I'm a lot more careful with my searches.
Well, that's good. Did you get your training thing figured out?
Yeah, I got the training thing.
Good,
I'm so glad that I went through all of that effort to answer 2 questions.
It's funny that you asked me about that last
Molly's
week.
nodding. She's like, yeah, preach on, brother.
Pat had the exact same problem with you, and you called me one afternoon with some questions, and Pat then called me later with the exact same questions.
Was he asking for how should I answer this question, or is it more just about a format thing?
We were just cross-checking our notes, that's all. Making sure we had the right thing.
All right, how was everyone's weekend? Everybody have a great weekend. I know Molly did. Go Big Red.
I had a wonderful weekend. Go Big Red.
Yeah, you got a reason to cheer again, right?
I do.
It's not just a bowl game in a calendar year, but it's also another Final Four appearance by your volleyball squad.
And this is a location that I can actually get to by car.
Oh, that's huge. Louisville.
So, yes.
I mean, you could get to New York by car. It would just
take
very inconvenient.
A couple days.
Yeah, a couple days.
But Louisville is only 5 hours from here. I've been to Louisville more times than I can count. Because growing up in Michigan, every time we would drive down, we'd always stop through Louisville. I had dance competitions in Louisville. I think it's at the KFC Yum Center, so I've been there a few times.
The first time that I ever worked the event, and I haven't worked it in the last couple of years for just scheduling has made it really, really tough. But the first Final Four that I was a part of, it was in Louisville.
Really?
And I went to the KFC Yum Center and did some stuff for the All-American match that Under Armour used to sponsor, and maybe they don't or still do under some degree, but Under Armour was structurally a lot different then. But it was a fun time. It was the first time to be in Louisville. I do remember flying up there and knowing that we were flying over Louisville, but I had to land, I think, in Chicago and then come back, which was kind of frustrating. It's like, can't you just drop me off right here? But no, they don't offer that.
I'm very excited. And like I said, it's only 5 hours away. It's all number 1 seeds that are left in the Final Four, which that rarely happens, even in volleyball. And hopefully Nebraska can make it to Sunday. I'll be a very happy girl.
Yeah, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.
Lots of news that we're going to get into. Obviously, the transfer portal, people leaving, people coming in. We'll start with the Auburn Tigers. That was the buzz over the weekend. Auburn gets their quarterback, Jackson Arnold, former 5-star Elite 11 MVP. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Conrad, you're one of the few people that has seen Jackson Arnold here around here in person.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see him at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Maybe we saw him, but we didn't see him. And then you got to see him, unfortunately for you, for 60 minutes of regulation football in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a great wrap up from Conrad, Crimson Conrad.
No, I'm just, okay. So I'm just thinking of where to start with this. First off, I think from an optimism standpoint, if you're an Auburn fan, you have to feel much better about where you are right now than where you were last year. This is also a very unique circumstance because we'll get to Walker White, who entered the portal as well. But if you're now Auburn, you have now completely cleared out your quarterback room from this year, right? All 4 quarterbacks or scholarship quarterbacks are now going to be gone, with Peyton Thorne graduating, Hank Brown, Holden Gardner, and Walker White now all going into the portal, and now you're starting over. It just goes back to the conversations that we had about whether it was him or maybe a Thomas Castellanos, Malik Murphy, a little bit of a different situation, a Miller Moss. Some of these guys we've talked about that have entered the portal already is, again, it is a guy that got benched at his school that he was at this past year, and that is who you are throwing, kind of putting all of the cards on the table and saying, this is the guy moving forward. Now, I do think, based on what was available to you in the portal, from a talent perspective, I think you got the best available option. I mean, if you follow Auburn on social media, you saw where they put out the graphic after he committed. It's the highest touted, the highest rated quarterback ever in Auburn football history. And I think that makes you excited, right? This was a guy that, a year ago was in some depending on what service you look at, the number one overall quarterback recruit in the entire country. So that is a guy that I understand you're going to have to develop a little bit, but I think the upside is obviously there. We saw what he was able to do with his legs against Alabama in particular, and I think that's something that should have Auburn fans very excited. But he is a quarterback who at times was limited throwing the football. Granted, 5 of his wide receivers were injured this year, so you kind of give him a little bit of leeway in that regard, I think. So if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm very optimistic. I think Jackson Arnold has all the talent in the world. But this is, again, a situation where if you're Hugh Freeze, you have a lot on the line, and you're going with a guy that needs to continue to be developed. And as we all know, this is pretty much a make-or-break season for Hugh Freeze and Auburn. So it's going to be interesting to see how it ultimately plays out on the Plains.
What is the level of optimism for Auburn fans if I asked you the question, this is the best quarterback, whether it's upside, whether it's, as you've already seen with what he's been able to do, and 1 year as a part-time starter, the other year coming in and playing spot roles. But where does this rank for Auburn fans? Best quarterback, most upside since, would you go, now that we know about Bo Nix, how many people would have said that about Bo Nix before his final 2 seasons at Oregon? Would you say Jarrett Stidham? Would you go back even further than that? But to your point, this was a guy that Hugh Freeze and that staff that they targeted. We knew that he was going to be prioritized from either Pete Nakos or Jeffrey Lee, who's going to join us, by the way, at 11 o'clock to talk more about it. But he was more of a priority than Malik Murphy was and how he fit, and especially with the RPO game, which is something that you have to have, and that's ideally what Hugh Freeze has to have, that offense. Now, with the deep ball, I got it better with that. The good news is with the deep ball, you've got a guy in Cam Coleman. You got other guys that are trying to add some more talent to that room that can break away and makes it maybe a little bit easier to be accurate with your ball when you got the guy that can run under it or come back to it. But I think that Jackson Arnold, that's a big win because you can only get guys that are available in the portal.
Correct.
And as we say that, we do have a high-profile name that has just gone into the portal, but you can only have what you're going to get. And speaking of Oklahoma, the latest is Washington State star quarterback John Batir is expected to enter the NCAA transfer portal. So
yeah, and I think
On3 reporting that as of about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I think maybe that one stings a little bit because that is a guy that I think a lot of people have looked at. I mean, we've mentioned him a couple of times as, those guys kind of on the bubble of, well, if they go into the portal, there's going to be a lot of attention, and those guys are going to be highly sought after, and I would expect that's still going to be the case. And but again, I mean, you're going with a guy from Washington State who had a really good season and has more experience, but you have a guy in Jackson Arnold who the I guess highly touted prospect who has SEC experience. I know people are going to make a joke about this, but let's be honest, he has beaten Alabama. There are not a lot of guys in the SEC that can say that they've beaten Alabama. He is one of those, and that is certainly something that is important at the end of the day, all jokes aside. So, and to your point, that you were kind of getting to, Jackson Arnold is going to have more around him at Auburn than he did at any point this year in Oklahoma, right? I don't think there's any doubt that Auburn is set up better from these skill positions moving forward. And I think another big part of this is yesterday you get left tackle Xavier Chaplin from Virginia Tech, a 2-year starter there in the ACC, guy who only gave up 2 sacks this past season. And so bolstering everything around Jackson Arnold, you're going to give him the best chance to succeed. And I think you're seeing Auburn do that, whether it's grabbing a left tackle or maybe grabbing a guy like Singleton, the wide receiver from Georgia Tech we've heard a lot about. It seems clear that they are going to try to put him in the best situation possible. And we'll see if Hugh Freeze can make it work, because this is the most talented quarterback that Hugh Freeze has ever had to work with.
And I was going to get to the offensive tackle and Xavier Chaplin, because this is a guy that was a third-team All-American, I believe, and has started and played meaningful football. It's not a guy that you're bringing up from no disrespect, because there are plenty of those great talents out there, but most of his experience, it has come from playing quality level teams, matchups, whatever you want to throw out there, and he's had a great deal of success. There's not many of those guys that Auburn has been able to, in the short time that we've had the transfer portal era, where you can bring in and say, this guy is a surefire, here is your starting game one left tackle, or wherever it fills a need, and that was a big need because that was something they were trying to figure out. It's not this guy's played inside, but we think, we could develop him into an outside guy or we can cross-train him. Seems like his size, 6'6", 320 pounds, he comes in and he takes care of that side of the football, and they're on the edge. So that's really good. Darrell Robinson, running back from UConn. He's got good size. It's a guy that, and they had really kind of a three-headed monster in that backfield this year with UConn when they came to Birmingham. But that certainly helps things out. You're not having to go to Halvin Henderson, the kid from Elba that you were able to bring in.
The freshman.
You have Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, but having that other guy, you can never have enough quality running backs. So that was good. And the punter from Oklahoma State, and I listened to it, guys. He's got the Aussie accent. He did his Auburn, Jordan Stadium, the Eagle Flight, and they all got Jordan Hare, by the way, correct.
That's good. That's very impressive.
Mike.
Very impressive.
But then when he pronounced his name, and I said with the two A's, it's Kaak, that I was going to say Cack. It is not pronounced Cack. It is Hunter Cock, and that's how you pronounce it.
That's great.
So, it is.
Good to know.
I will say it with an Aussie accent every time I say it now. But yeah, so Auburn picks up a punter with Oscar Chapman being gone. They get Hunter Clark, the Australian punter.
But all in all, I mean, a very good weekend for Auburn.
There's no way around it, guys.
If
you're an Auburn fan, you hope that he doesn't punt that much.
Yeah, that is a good point. But no, I mean, I think in terms of
Molly, I'm sorry.
There's no way around it. You just
there's not.
Like surely they don't pronounce it.
You just gotta tackle it head on. It is what it is.
Yep,
but all around, I mean, a very good weekend for Auburn through the portal. I would say. I mean, you got at the time the best quarterback available, the best offensive lineman available, or at least left tackle available, one of the best running backs, and Singleton still.
Singleton's out there.
He
know what happens though. You go over in the sip, and you start sipping on that Lane Kiffin Kool-Aid. Who knows what's going to happen there? I saw and I told you that it was not a done deal. Auburn felt very good with the position that they were in with Singleton when he came and visited. I think they still feel pretty well, and we'll see how much of that has changed with Jeffrey Lee. But he's there. C.J. Daniels, the transfer from LSU, started his career at Liberty. He's still out there. I know Ole Miss is in the mix for him. So if Auburn can get one of those guys to try to solidify and shore up that wide receiver room. But the key is, for the most part, with the Perry Thompsons, the Malcolm Simmons, the Cam Colemans of the world, those guys, they are still on your roster, and they made a commitment to come back next season. So still gonna have a lot of talent as long as they stay healthy for Jackson Arnold to throw to. And with a guy like Robinson, the addition of Chaplin there at tackle, I think Auburn did some really good things, and there's some other guys that they'd like to go and get.
Absolutely, and there's some movement on the Alabama side of things that we will dive into as well coming up. But over the weekend, you did have Travis Hunter win the Heisman Trophy, beating out Ashton Jeanty. It was actually pretty close as far as the voting goes, but congratulations to Travis Hunter on taking home college football's top honor. But that actually ties into our poll question here on Three Man Front, which we have each and every day, brought to us by our friends at Twin Peaks and Hoover. You can get on into Twin Peaks. They're going to have plenty of screens for you to catch all of the games any day of the week or weekend. Check out their 29-degree man-sized drafts, their wonderful cocktail menu, their litany of craft beer options. They also have their full-service kitchen there with the wonderful chicken wings, their quesabria tacos, their barbecue, backyard barbecue brisket flatbreads, all those wonderful things available for you right there at Twin Peaks and Hoover. And they sponsor our daily Three-Man Front Twitter poll question of the day, Molly, and I believe it has to do with some past Heisman winners here in the SEC.
It sure does. So who is the best SEC Heisman Trophy winner of the last decade? Is it Derrick Henry from 2015, Joe Burrow from 2019, Bryce Young from 2021, or Jaden Daniels from 2023? I'm not shocked at the votes right now. Right now, Joe Burrow is winning with 50% of the votes, 43% voting for Derrick Henry, 4% for Bryce Young, and 3% for Jaden Daniels. And that's with over 500 votes already.
Yeah, that's the surprising part for me. It's not that Joe Burrow's leading, because I voted for Joe Burrow.
Same. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, that's a pretty easy choice. But the fact that you have Joe Burrow and Derrick Henry so clearly ahead of Bryce Young and Jaden Daniels is shocking to me. And there's only 4 options, so we weren't able to put Devontae Smith in there because he was the 5th. SEC Heisman winner that you've had over the last 10 years. But just the fact that Derrick Henry and Joe Burrow are running away with it over Bryce Young and Jade Daniels is kind of surprising.
I'm surprised Devontae didn't make the poll.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I put the poll together, and I had to make a cut, and it was going to be him or Bryce Young. And I was like, well, I can't leave out the one quarterback that's won the Heisman for Alabama history. So I'm sorry, Devontae Smith. I'm sure there's a lot of people that might have voted for him, but Joe Burrow and Derrick Henry clearly leading the way there in our poll.
Yeah, you can continue to vote at the number 3-man front. Don't want to mention, and we'd be remiss, but heavy hearts across the state of Alabama, especially there on the plains of Auburn, just the entire campus and what he meant. But Auburn University chaplain, he was chaplain there and a mainstay for over, 24 years, Chet Williams. Unfortunately, we learned of his passing over the weekend and just a horrible accident there at Lake Martin. But Chet Williams, Auburn chaplain, passing away at the age of 61. Ten 19 3-man front, the transfer portal news Got a lot of news over Auburn, still more expected there on the Plains. Also, Alabama, some transfer portal news that we'll get into, but we have now 2 starters from last year's team that have announced their intentions to be in the portal and to possibly land on another squad. It started with running back Justice Haynes, but now the latest, Devontae Smith. And I saw the first time, and I guess this would be right, but the first time no Devontae Smith on that roster since 2016, Conrad Van Order.
Yeah,
it's a good thing you didn't have your Devontae Smith jersey.
It is. I guess the good news is if you had a number 6 Devontae Smith jersey, you could have easily just put some tape on there and made an 8, and it would have continued to work through this year. But yeah, those are 2 big names there for Alabama, and some other things that we will get to here in just a moment. But I know Alabama fans are panicking a little bit, so we're going to break it down and what the outlook for Alabama is over the rest of the offseason.
Well, don't get caught in the cold. Schedule your system checkup now from a trained comfort specialist. Trane has been recognized 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. So go visit Trane.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
So as Landrum mentioned, Justice Haynes, the running back, the kind of the 1A, 1B situation you had this year with him and Jam Miller for Alabama, but he announces his intention to enter the portal late last week. We already have 5 schools that have been connected with him and his recruitment out of the portal. It looks like he's going to be visiting Ole Miss and South Carolina this week. Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida, also schools that seem to have expressed interest in the Alabama running back there early on. So I know, again, the early rumor was that he would follow Caleb Downs to Ohio State. Reportedly, they were very close during their time together there in Tuscaloosa. So that was an early name to watch, but it looks like he might be staying in the SEC, which I know is not what Alabama fans want. If these guys are going to transfer out, you would probably rather not have to wait and see them until potentially in the college football playoff. But South Carolina and Ole Miss look like some early options there for Justice Haynes. You have Devontae Smith. As Landrum mentioned, he hits the portal as well. Haven't seen any early teams to watch for him, but he's certainly going to be a guy that's highly coveted and played a really nice role there for Alabama when he was healthy this year. You also have some guys that were visiting this weekend. You have KC Concepcion, the wide receiver from NC State. He continues to take a lot of visits, but the buzz is still pretty positive towards Alabama. Reportedly had a very good visit over the weekend. You have Mississippi State wide receiver Mario Craver, who is going to be visiting Tuscaloosa today. He had 368 yards, 3 touchdowns this past year for the Bulldogs, so another potential target there for Alabama. And we found out that quarterback Dylan Lonergan, who had already entered the portal early last week, I believe it was, or maybe the week before that, but he is going to be visiting Georgia this week. So that's certainly something that I don't think would make Alabama fans particularly happy as if he goes to Georgia, because, again, that's a kid that we've heard very, very good things about in practice, and it certainly seems like he's going to have a bright future somewhere else, and ultimately that may be at Georgia. But still, Justice Haynes and Devontae Smith, the big names there for Alabama, and 2 guys that were, as you said, starters this year that are now holes you're going to have to fill heading into 2025.
And I had a Bama buddy, and I sent you the text and screenshotted it. And the question was, should this be a concern? Is this just the nature of college football and the landscape, or is this something that may be something deeper within that Alabama football program? I don't think it's any cause for alarm. You look at the situations, you look at the offense and having to share carries, and Justice Haynes, he certainly had to do that, and how they divvied that up. And to go and be maybe the number 1 guy for a team that is going to be more traditional in the amount of carries that they give a running back, and he was highly touted, as all those guys are coming out of high school, would not certainly blame him. The amount of money for a guy like Justice Haynes should be towards, I would think, the top of the threshold when it comes to breaking it down by position and where they're bracketed right now. But you also have to think about this, and it still reigns true. He's a running back from Alabama, and that still is going to carry a lot of cachet with guys and teams, and bringing a guy in that you don't have to question whether, does he fit here? Yes, he fits anybody's offense in running the football. So I don't think that you say that it's something deeper. But if we continue to see it, then we can re-examine it. And then for a guy like Devontae Smith, maybe you see the writings on the wall, and you played a lot of special teams in your time. You did get some starts, but maybe you see that the role in the defense isn't where you thought it was going to be, and why not? Your final year, go and experience something different and get paid.
Yeah, and I think, specifically with Devontae Smith, I think that's exactly what the situation is, and maybe similarly for Justice Haynes as well. But, you look at Devontae Smith and what Alabama has at the safety spot, and I know he played the Husky role, and when he was out, Deshaun Jones came in, who had transferred in from Wake Forest. He came in and did a pretty good job there. I know Red Morgan got some looks there. I think Mbakwe maybe got some work there later in the season as well. So you have guys on the roster already that have shown, hey, we have an ability to come in and play this position and play it pretty well. And then you look at the other safety spots and what you have in Keon Sabb, who's going to be coming back from injury, we know. And then a guy like Bray Hubbard, who I think really surprised people when he got his opportunity this year and played really, really good football down the stretch for Alabama. And I think, yeah, it's just a situation where if you're Devontae Smith, you're maybe the odd man out. And, this is where the portal hurts these teams the most. And we've talked about this the last couple of years is, these are guys that traditionally would be there from a depth perspective, right? So if somebody gets hurt, these guys step up, they have experience, and it's, kind of boom, next man up mentality, you're good to go. Well, you don't have those luxuries anymore. And that's, a similar thing with Justice Haynes where, okay, you still have Jam Miller, you still have Richard Young, you still have Daniel Hill and some of these younger guys there. They're going to be okay. You just hope that you don't suffer too many injuries at these positions, and that's when the depth and these guys transferring out really seems to hurt you. But I mean, to your point, it's just kind of the reality of the world we live in right now. I mean, right now, Alabama has 10 players in the portal. That's pretty par for the course across college football. This isn't Arkansas where you have 25 plus players in the portal, and that really starts to raise some concern, and rightfully so. But, it's an opportunity for Alabama to go out there and get guys through the portal that can come in and contribute. And maybe they're not able to do that. Maybe they are, but a lot of guys that are leaving, you look at the wide receiver room. I mean, you have 3 guys that left and would probably play a role next year, and they played a role this year, but, they didn't even combine those 3 guys for 300 yards receiving this year. So they're nice players. You'd like to have them, but, the writing is kind of on the wall for a lot of them, and it looks like Alabama is ready to fill those holes, and we'll see, when they start bringing guys out of the portal. I think that's the other thing is you hear, oh, Auburn's getting Jackson Arnold. Oh, Auburn's getting this left tackle from Virginia Tech. It feels like a lot of these big-time players, Auburn's in the mix for all of them. And then for Alabama, you're sitting here watching these names tick off and enter the portal, and they're not bringing anybody in yet. And I think that's where maybe some of the uncertainty sets in.
By the way, Connor, I don't know if you heard, but the only reason that Auburn is bringing in Jackson Arnold is because he beat Alabama. That was.
I'm sure that is
right there at the top of the list.
I'm sure that is the only reason. This is much different than the Zach Calzada situation. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
I don't think Jackson Arnold will be playing at Incarnate Word in a year.
No, but given the track record of past guys that have come in there, keep your fingers crossed.
Well, let's look at it from this way. What was the last time that Auburn beat out Mississippi State for a transfer quarterback? I believe that guy won you a national championship and a Heisman Trophy. If we want to go that route, I mean, I'm just saying.
If you want to go that route,
yeah. Just
I would argue that they've beaten them out for other quarterbacks. Just it didn't come down to maybe an Auburn Mississippi State race.
Yes, I just just all the people out there that are the Alabama fan. Oh, you just got him because he beat Alabama, and then there's 2 sides to it, I guess.
By the way, Van Buren going from Mississippi State to LSU.
That is good for Brian Kelly. I mean, that's a very talented young guy who we know Garrett Nussmeier is coming back for another year, so let him sit in that system for a year, and I don't think you had to pay him $12 million like you were Bryce Underwood. So maybe that's your quarterback of the future there is Michael Van Buren from Mississippi State.
Jock's text line's open, 205-834-9450. Auburn fans want to get your reaction to Jackson Arnold. You fired up about it? You mad about it? You down? How do you feel about Auburn's, it seemed to be, QB1 to start next season? Alabama fans, how much concern is there? We were just talking about it. Got a text from a buddy of mine asking, is this cause for concern? Don't really know how to react. There's more of these type names coming. 205-834-9450, 800-239-WJOX.
Welcome back into Three-Man Front 10:33 here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you joining us here. Conrad Landrum and Molly with you until 2 o'clock. Pat Smith will be back with us tomorrow. We will be out at Social Taco, and it will be our Three-Man Front Social Taco Crew Gathering Christmas Party Bonanza. That's officially the name that
Bonanza?
I'm giving it. Yeah,
Okay.
the Christmas Party Bonanza. But that'll be tomorrow at Social Taco. Hope y'all can come out there and join us. It should be a big time. We've been talking a lot of transfer portal news already this morning. Auburn getting Jackson Arnold, the former Oklahoma quarterback, out of the portal over the weekend. That is the big news. Also, Alabama losing some key contributors from this year's team, and Justice Haynes and Devontae Smith announcing that they are planning to enter the transfer portal. I will tell you that Alex Scarborough of 247 Sports, he put out an article this morning talking about Jalen Milroe, and this is something we talked about last week. We know Alabama is getting ready to play in the ReliaQuest Bowl coming up on New Year's Eve. We know that Jalen Milroe is going to play in that game. But Alex Scarborough reporting this morning that there are multiple sources that believe Jalen Milroe will ultimately declare for the NFL draft after the bowl game. So this will be his final game at Alabama. Again, not set in stone, but the belief is that he will be announcing his intent to go in the NFL draft after the bowl game, which will then pave the way for Ty Simpson, Keelan Russell, whoever it may be, to step in next year as the starting quarterback for Alabama. I just know that's something we talked about with Ryan Hennessy last week, the potential of Jalen Milroe coming back. And, you know, would you want him to come back for Alabama? Would you want him to hit the transfer portal? What have you? But at least the reports this morning seem to indicate that Jalen Milroe will be announcing that he is heading into the NFL draft. 205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line, as some of you have already done this morning. Want to get your thoughts on the transfer portal so far. How optimistic are you about Auburn's future under Jackson Arnold? And will Hugh Freeze be able to get it done next year and turn things around? We have KW who texts in and says, KW texts in and says, can it be confirmed that Jackson Arnold is currently staying in Hugh Freeze's pool house and they're running through plays in his backyard right now? Can't confirm that one.
Yeah, I
Cannot
haven't
confirm
heard that one yet.
No, haven't heard that one yet, but I guess it's possible. Can never get started on that stuff too early. Let's see. Darren from Tennessee texts in. He says, Roll Tide, can we get a poll going between Alabama and Auburn for each team's naughty list? Since I'm an Alabama fan, mine would be Chris Davis and Bo Jackson. Y'all have a good day. Yeah, I think a lot of Alabama fans, especially the Chris Davis kick six, would have him on their naughty list. Let's see. Somebody else texting in says, Dylan Lonergan would be a perfect fit for North Carolina. I actually like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very good opportunity for a player like that. They do have Bryce Baker, the number 10 quarterback recruit in the country, coming in this cycle. But, you know, as we've talked about with Eli Holstein, transferring to Pitt, had a really nice year for them this year. So, yeah, I could see Dylan Lonergan going somewhere like North Carolina and having a good bit of success there. Somebody texted in and says, hey, guys, I heard Devontae Smith was one of the highest paid players on Alabama's team last year. I cannot confirm nor deny that for you. I do not know what his compensation was. I wouldn't think he would be one of the highest paid. I could be completely wrong on that, but I would just think that you would have between, you know, guys like Milroe and, you know, even a Ryan Williams coming in as a freshman, and guys like Lawson or, you know, Damani Jackson that you got in the portal, or even a Jahad Campbell, I would think maybe would command more money, but I could be wrong about that one. All right, Mark texts in and says, I think Jackson Arnold is a good acquisition for Auburn. All righty, that's good. And that's the thing that, you know, I just want to know, what is the optimism around Auburn fans? Because it feels like for the last 2 weeks, when Jackson Arnold hit the portal and we've been talking about the potential of him going to Auburn, it just didn't seem like there was a ton of optimism, maybe in the sense of, well, you know, if that's our guy, then, you know, we'll go with it. But
Right.
You know, maybe it just felt like maybe Auburn fans were waiting for a bigger name to hit the portal, or, you know, you wanted a guy like a Malik Murphy who had a little more experience, maybe. I don't know what it is, but I'm glad to see that there does seem to be more.
I've seen a little bit of both sides.
Yeah, there seems to be more optimism from what Damian and I got on Morning Jocks and the start of the show today about Jackson Arnold and Auburn moving forward. Okay, somebody texted in and says that they're not a fan of conference realignment and transfer portal and how much of the conversation that it dominates in the offseason. And I understand that. It is stuff that we talk about a lot. Personally, I'm grateful for it because it gives us things to talk about year round, and that is part of what has, I think, helped the, college football continue to grow. And something that we give the NFL credit for is they do such a good job of, whether it's the schedule reveal or even the combine and the draft, and just finding things that when the games aren't being played, they find ways to keep you interested, right? They find ways to stay at the top of the news cycle. And I understand, a lot of the legal stuff that we have to get into in the offseason. I don't think any of us are the biggest fans of that, at least compared to breaking down the actual games and personnel and things like that. But it is college football's way of staying in the news cycle year round. It's just part of the world that we live in now. Let's see. Bama Hater texted in and says, boo-hoo, poor old Alabama. I thought Alabama could replace 5 stars with more 5 stars. All of that talent, and they still finished tied for 4th in the SEC with 6 other teams. That is fair, Bama Hater. They are still ranked higher than Miami, though. Somebody else texts in and says, who are the wide receivers that have transferred out from Alabama so far? So you have Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, and Caleb Odom are the 3 wide receivers that have hit the portal so far. And I just did some quick math this morning. If you add up those 3 players' stats, again, Caleb Odom, Kobe Prentice, and Kendrick Law from this past season, they combined for 28 catches, 299 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So again, not saying they're not nice players or pieces that you would want on your team for depth and things of that nature, but those are the receivers that have left, and you kept your top 2 guys in Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. So, I think those are guys that, again, you would like to keep them, but you can replace. Doug texting in and says, not being in the playoffs can't be a positive, but Alabama will shake off the unsatisfied players quicker and be more focused on the transfer portal and recruiting. I guess that's one way to look at it. You are able to get started on these things earlier. And, we've seen how the playoff and the transfer portal window kind of conflict with each other. We had the Penn State quarterback yesterday that entered the portal and essentially put out a statement saying, this kind of puts me in a tough spot, right? Because I want to be with my team in the playoff, but if I want to take the best advantage of my situation and find a good spot for next year, I need to go ahead and put my name in the portal.
Right.
So
that's why I don't like really the scheduling of it all.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. And that goes back to, again, like what we saw with Malik Murphy last year at Texas, where he hit the portal before the college football playoff. And a lot of people were upset about that. And, I agree. I don't think it's the best decision in the world, but it is now a business and you have to do what is best for you in your situation. Let's see. We have some people are having fun with the Auburn punter they got out of the transfer portal and his last name that came from Oklahoma State. Chris texts in and says, so he's trying to understand what happened with Marshall. So if you missed it over the weekend, so Marshall was supposed to play Army in the Independence Bowl coming up, but Marshall has had to withdraw from the bowl game because they had so many players enter the transfer portal that they weren't going to be able to field a competitive team. This is similar to what we saw. I don't know if I want to give them that much credit, but we saw a similar situation with Texas A&M a couple years ago where they bowed out of a bowl game, essentially saying we're not going to have enough players to play. So that is an unfortunate situation for Marshall. So they are out of the Independence Bowl, but Louisiana Tech is now in because they were one of the 5 and 7 teams that met the APR standards to make a bowl game. And the reality of it is, I know some people probably wonder, well, why wasn't Auburn maybe a team that was considered in that spot? But the reality is that at this point in the season, so many players have already left. They're already off campus, or they're not. Trying to get your whole team back together and to practice and get ready for a bowl game is a difficult thing to do. So Louisiana Tech was able to make that happen. And so they will play Army now in the Independence Bowl. Randy texts in and says, so Auburn grabs another quarterback to beat Alabama. He's just Calzada 2.0. Yes, that we have gone over that joke. I will just say this. Jackson Arnold is much more highly touted than Zach Calzada ever was. And yes, they did both beat Alabama, but I think we would all agree that Jackson Arnold, the talent level there is much higher than what you had with a Zach Calzada.
And more of a sample size.
Not
just 4 quarters of football over a team that nobody thought would lose that year.
Yes, absolutely. So 205-834-9450. Appreciate all your texts. Keep the text rolling in. Want to get your thoughts on the transfer portal. What is your level of optimism for Auburn and Jackson Arnold heading into 2025?
Three-man front. We continue. Don't forget, Jeffrey Lee at the top of the hour. We're talking Auburn and not only what happened this past weekend, but maybe some other big names that could be rolling in. We continue on Jocks 94.5. 10:48, we continue here on Three Man Front. Hard to believe, just 9 days away from Christmas. Merry Christmas season's greetings from all of us, not only at Three Man Front and Jocks 94.5, but to all of you, because your family as well. If everyone has a safe and happy holiday season, we'll continue with your text. Transfer portal news abound. With more news coming out, Conrad, and this coming out of Auburn, not going into Auburn, but coming out of Auburn. Current player has filed out the paperwork, and somebody's now just got to process it as this particular young man will enter the transfer portal.
That's correct. Amaris Williams, the edge rusher, 5-star recruit, according to 247, in last year's recruiting class. He's from North Carolina. He has announced that he is planning to enter the transfer portal. So one of those young defensive players for Auburn that I know they had a lot of high hopes for moving into the future, but he has decided that the grass is greener somewhere else. So Amaris Williams is entering the transfer portal as of a few minutes ago.
How about our friends at Dobbs Ford right there on Parkway East? You want to get your holiday shopping done. If you're looking for a new car, truck, SUV for you, member of your family, your significant other, look no further than Dobbs Ford. Just wonderful people, the Goshen family. They're the managing partners there at Dobbs Ford. You're going to go and you're going to feel the difference with wonderful staff, not just the Goshens, but everybody there. When you walk on the lot, you walk into Alabama's largest showroom selection. You're certainly going to feel it, just the down-to-earth nature. And if you never buy anything from there, you're certainly going to appreciate the customer experience and how much they appreciate you. Go to Dobbs Ford. You check out DobbsFordBirmingham.com for the F-150s, the Explorers, the Mustangs, the Broncos, and the Broncos Sports. Top dollar for your trade, total transparency. They'll beat any competitor's price. Merry Christmas from our friends at Dobbs Ford, DobbsFordBirmingham.com.
Well, speak of the devil, we have more transfer portal news. 1 minute ago, Incarnate Word quarterback Zach Calzada, boom, enters the transfer portal.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, you say his name, and there he appears. So that's just kind of...
He's like Candyman and Beetlejuice.
That's right. Kind of ironic how that happened. But, I mean, he had a really nice year this year. Had 3,700 yards, 35 touchdowns there for Incarnate Word.
He's taking the path of Cam Ward.
He is.
So now...
So Miami's quarterback next year?
You've got Washington State's quarterback who's leaving.
I'm about to say he has to go to
that's
Wazoo
true.
first.
Yes, that's right.
Do we get Calzada to Pullman? Then from Pullman, potentially to Miami.
And then Batir to Miami, and then Calzada Miami next year.
How many years does he have left?
7 probably, just based on how college football works now. I would assume. But no, I mean, he's got to have, 2 years left probably, because he had a year at Texas A&M, a year at Auburn.
You know what? I've stopped keeping up or guessing with how many years that a guy has left.
I don't either.
Hey, if TJ Finley's entering the transfer portal again, then everybody's
have we
fine.
cycled out of the COVID year, or are we still having the COVID year?
I believe this year was the last year of the COVID year babies, or whatever we want to call them. Yeah. So I think we are done with that for now. But yeah, it is difficult to figure out how many years of eligibility these guys have. It could be 1 or it could be 7.
Well, I mean, then you have a guy like Cam Ward who's older than I am.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in college.
The Miami tight end this year who's playing his 8th or 9th year of college football?
There's probably several players that are older than you, Molly. You just turned, you turned 24 in September? Is that right?
Look at you. You know me so well.
Oklahoma State's quarterback, I think he's 27, something like that. He's getting into Brandon Whedon territory there.
No, but it's just weird that I've been out of college for almost 2 years, and there's guys that are still older than me that are in college playing ball.
Well, and then you get to be my age, and you look at coaches that just got head coaching jobs that are 12 years younger than you, and they just got a buyout to leave their job at $23 million. You think, man,
that's nice.
Well, yeah, we can.
I'm not saying that could have been me, but
it could have.
I tell my high school buddies all the time that we're in under the old state retirement setup that started coaching at 22, got jobs at 22, and now 23 years into the state retirement system. I envy them so much.
Yeah, they're definitely They're definitely in good situations there.
Even if, let's say you go and you put the full 30 in 7 years and you're under that old, that is a really, really sweet deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, my mom, she wasn't a coach, but working in
my mom was
education here for decades, and it has treated her very well. And I know definitely down the stretch she was ready to go, but you want to get those last years in and keep that retirement all nice and tidy. And yeah, it's a good spot to be in.
Speaking of state employees, Jacksonville State, they're looking for a new head coach as Rich Rodriguez returns to Morgantown to take over the West Virginia Mountaineers program. Michael has a question about the Jacksonville State University coaching staff search, something. Michael, Merry Christmas. How are you?
Yeah, who do you see taking Rich Rod's place as the head coach at JSU?
Michael, can I flip that question around and ask you, who do you think is taking that job? Because I'll be honest with you, I hate to spoil it. I have no idea.
Could Jimbo Fisher be in the running, or that's pretty far-fetched?
I think Jimbo would have other opportunities, no disrespect, but if he was going to get back into it, then Jimbo would maybe try to land another gig.
Agree. I agree. Other than
At a Power 4 program.
Know. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I'm like, kind of stuck in limbo. I had no idea.
Well, and you got to think ties. Is there a tie here in the state that maybe is on somebody else's staff that could come back, that wants a head coaching opportunity, and they're getting up there in years and figure, okay, now is the time, because Jacksonville State going D1 and being a member of Conference USA, it's certainly a lot different than when they were at the FCS level. Mm-hmm. And that's an attractive job, and they do a great job, and you got really good facilities. So I would think that there's going to be some interest, but it would be really irresponsible for me to just start throwing out names, because I don't know. I will say this, I do not believe that Bill Clark is a legitimate name.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I heard you say last week that you said that Bill Clark interviewed Jordan. That's what I've been hearing on social media. All the Jacksonville State fans want Bill Clark to come back.
Right.
I doubt that's going to happen.
And he holds a very special place in his heart. I know that from being a player, a student there, and then coaching there. But I don't see it. If Bill Clark wants to answer that directly, but I don't see it happen.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the phone call. Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you. We appreciate your phone call. 800-239-WJOX.
So I will say this. So the Gadsden Times, I just found this. They put out an article, of some coaching candidates or potential options to replace Rich Rod there at JSU. So Bill Clark was one of the names on the list, as was Skip Holtz. But talking about coaches that maybe have ties back to JSU, you have a couple of co-DCs at Oklahoma in Zach Alley and Todd Bates, both being mentioned there. Zach Alley worked with Rich Rodriguez at Jacksonville State for the first couple of years that he was there. Todd Bates was a defensive line coach for JSU back in the middle 2010s. So you have a little bit of a tie there. Again, I think this one might be a long shot, but, potentially worth reaching out. They have Neil Brown listed, who did just get let go by West Virginia and has been replaced by Rich Rodriguez. So there's maybe a fit there.
And if you want a guy that is from the coaching tree, that is Bill Clark, he's just been in Monroe, Louisiana for one season. And I don't want to speak for our buddy Bryant Vincent, but Bryant Vincent would be a name that you would look at and what he was able to do. And even falling just short of being eligible to go to a bowl game, going 5-7 in Monroe based on what he inherited. Maybe that's an option. He's very familiar with this state at the high school level and certainly at the college level.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there. Another name that people here in Alabama would be familiar with is Freddie Kitchens, a North Carolina assistant coach. So some ties to the state of Alabama, but, we'll see.
We'll get Jeffrey Lee's thoughts on guys coming in through the transfer portal for Auburn this weekend and the announcement of Amaris Williams leaving. He's next. 11 o'clock here on this Monday, Reaction Monday. We had the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Very, very close vote, needless to say. But Travis Hunter, he walks away with the hardware. Ashton Jenney, the Boise State running back, he believes that he should have walked away with it. It's just tough. And look, Genty was absolutely incredible in what he was able to do. But to have a guy that does it at an elite level on both sides of the ball and to do it in the Big 12 and to come up from the FCS ranks when he was at Jackson State. But as far as highly touted number one overall recruits from the high school prognosticators and the services that we get through recruiting, this is one of the few guys that I can remember absolutely lived up and then some to every bit of the billing.
Yeah, and, I don't want to say that played a part in the ultimate voting because I know there was a lot of people that thought Genty should have won, and I don't think you could have gone wrong either way. But, I mean, to your point, to a guy that was the number one recruit in the country, starts out in HBCU, then transfers to Colorado. They have kind of a dumpster fire of a season last year, and now this year, not only the job that he did, but Coach Prime and that whole staff and that whole team did of turning that into a winning product and giving him the opportunity to go out there and play at a high level and play winning football. Yeah, he's going to make some NFL team very, very happy in April, and he's going to make himself a lot of money.
A guy that would know better than we would. Jeffrey Lee, our buddy, senior recruiting editor, he is not in a tree today trying to harvest a deer, and we appreciate him taking the time. How many have you harvested this year? It sounds better for our frou-frou listeners.
Only one so far.
Okay. All right.
But I just got out of the woods. I was making sure they were well fed.
Yeah, that's good. Stock up on corn this time of year, right? Jeffrey, before we do get started, very, very sad news over the weekend, and this is somebody that I know that you've had a lot of interaction with in your time there on the plains and his 26 years of service, and I say that because that's truly what he did. He served the Lord first and foremost, but he served that athletic department. Just so sad to hear about the passing of one Chet Williams.
Yeah, it was really heartbreaking for anybody that had ever met him or been around him, been affected by him. We saw his influence, back in 2004 with Tommy Tuberville's under-50 team, and he just stayed on since then. Had the opportunity to talk to him Friday, and he changed a lot of lives and changed a lot of futures and a lot of eternities for a lot of folks here around this program.
Amen. Well said.
So getting to the transfer portal for Auburn, I know everyone wants to talk about Jackson Arnold. That was the big news over the weekend, but some news we got just a couple of minutes ago here, Jeffrey, and that is that edge rusher Amaris Williams has decided to enter the transfer portal for Auburn, one of their bigger recruits, especially on the defensive side of the ball from last year's recruiting class. So what can you tell us about his decision to enter the transfer portal? Did this come to a surprise to a lot of people there on the staff there at Auburn?
Yeah, I think it did come as a surprise. I put up a little note just a minute ago that Auburn's still working to get him back, but I think he was a guy he's from North Carolina. You got Bill Belichick there now. I think those are two big factors for him. He was he's a guy that really didn't want to go far from home, and I think that's played a part in him coming to Auburn. When you have a chance to go play for Belichick and play for your home state, that's going to be tough to overcome for Auburn. But they're still working on him. Huge loss, though, if in fact he does leave.
All right, Jeffrey, and you don't have to go player specific, but you know about this stuff, and some stuff you choose not to report because you're asked not to report it. But when you have these guys, and we just assume all of them coming out of high school, especially a guy like him, has an NIL deal, and not how it's structured, but in some cases, do you have coaches, and when they're re-recruiting some of these guys, even during the course of the season before it gets to transfer portal, are we renewing deals? Are we upping deals? Are we incentivizing even more with existing NIL contracts in some cases?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody gets a raise at the end of the season. It's just like anything else. If you went from, a second teamer to a starter to an all conference player, you're definitely going to re-sign and get re-upped. I know even special teams players, you're getting raises depending on your contribution and incentives, certainly.
All right, let's talk about the big news that you guys reported on Saturday. And we knew that he had come in. We had heard that Auburn had prioritized him as their quarterback. Malik Murphy gets to campus first, has what seemed like a good visit, but there was no offer. There was no timetable. Then the Jackson Arnold visit coming in. At one point, Mississippi State fans felt really good about it because of his relationship with former Oklahoma offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby and now Bulldogs head coach. But Auburn was able to seal the deal. Take us inside and kind of behind the scenes of the staff and just the overall visit and how they prioritize one Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, bringing him in, I really do think Hugh Freeze loves the ceiling of Jackson Arnold. I feel like he fits perfectly in what Hugh Freeze wants to do. I think him choosing Auburn over Mississippi State kind of goes back to, the support around him. You look at the freshman wide receiver class from this past year, and Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane, Barry Thompson, all those guys around you. So I think that was a big deal to Jackson Arnold. I think the prestige of playing at Auburn over Mississippi State probably played a role. We all can understand that. I think maybe not Alabama fans, but most of us on the right side of the state.
Okay.
But they prioritized him, wanted him, made it work out. And I think Hugh Freeze sees a lot of Bo Nix in Jackson Arnold. I think the trajectory of both of those quarterbacks they're on a similar trajectory. And they even put out, Saturday after his signing, how comparable he is to Bo Nix and what he thinks he can do in this offense. I think it was a home run. I really do. I like it. I think if you can get Ashton Daniels, who is going to leave campus this afternoon, to come in and compete with him and Deuce Knight, and then you add another guy at some point, before. I don't know if you can do it before the spring, but Hugh Freeze has said he wants 4 quarterbacks. So you get Ashton Daniels, you still got a hole to fill at some point. I think they would like to get Walker White back, but if not, then I think they'll find somebody else, maybe in the spring window.
Jeffrey, I think you just kind of hit on it a little bit there, but with what you imagine Auburn probably had to pay to get a guy like Jackson Arnold to commit and come out of the portal, do you look at this as this is going to be a full-blown competition between him and potentially Ashton Daniels and Deuce Knight, or do you think there's any sort of a guarantee that, hey, Jackson Arnold, you come in here, you're going to be our quarterback one this year, no doubt about it, and then moving forward, you start to open up a competition between maybe him and Deuce Knight? So do you look at, do you think that Jackson Arnold is essentially being told, hey, you're going to be quarterback one for Auburn in 2025?
Absolutely. It's your job to lose is how I would view it, more than a guarantee. Like, you're coming in as QB1, and somebody's going to have to unseat you to beat you out. However, that's not impossible, and we will play the best man for the job. The best man for the job. Absolutely, we're going to play the best person that we think is going to win us more games. But coming in, it's your job to lose.
Jeffrey Lee, a part of Auburn Live on 3, and Jeffrey does a wonderful job there with the recruiting and what there is to know, anything there is to know recruiting throughout the year. He's the senior recruiting editor. You can find him there on Twitter at JLeeAU Live, and all of our guests join us on the Buyers Right hotline. I do want to go back to something you said and answer one of the questions. So you talked about the comps with a Bo Nix, and I was going to ask, this is the best quarterback as is with upside since, and you said it was Bo Nix. Going back to Peyton Thorne and some of the other guys they had on the roster, let's just make the comp to Peyton Thorne. What do they believe that Jackson Arnold possesses in his skill set that maybe they were a little bit more uncomfortable with Peyton Thorne and the lack thereof?
Fantastic question, because this is something I bounced off of yesterday with somebody who knows a lot more than I do about it. Jackson Arnold, believe it or not, is not an overthinker. And when I say overthinker, Peyton Thorne, he would overthink. He would overcomplicate things. Jackson Arnold, in his film studies with the staff during his visit, they're going through plays and reads and what are you going to do here? And he was boom, boom, boom. And whereas Peyton, and he was accepting instruction better than Peyton Thorne did. Peyton Thorne was what happens with this and what happens with that? Well, what about happens with this? And it was with Jackson Arnold, it was like, look, this is what you're going to do if this happens. And he knew exactly what to do and understood their, terminology, what their line of thinking was when it comes to going through his reads and progressions. And I think that was the biggest difference between those two guys was, at least, from what this guy was telling me, is that, he was better at understanding what they wanted out of their quarterback and how they wanted their quarterback to think.
Well, Jeffrey, a big part of quarterback play, as we all know, is the offensive line, and Auburn went and got left tackle Xavier Chaplin from Virginia Tech yesterday. Seems like that's going to be kind of a plug-and-play starter for them there on the offensive line. So what can you tell us about him and maybe some other players that Auburn's targeting to kind of bolster that offensive line for Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I could make the argument that Xavier Chaplin was as big of a get as Jackson Arnold, because getting Jackson Arnold's one thing, but getting somebody to protect his blind side is maybe even more important to allow him to be the guy that we all think he can be. So I think getting Xavier Chaplin, I think he was 6'7" and 1/4 inch tall. He was 323 pounds, and he had a wingspan of 87 inches.
Whew.
That is NFL body, NFL ready. He's a 2-year starter there at Virginia Tech, so he's got experience. He's got 2 years left, which I think is even better. So I think getting him was absolutely crucial, huge for Auburn. And now they're going to listen, they still want another tackle or two. They want Mason Murphy, a tackle from USC, who visited early last week. Then I think they would like to get 2 interior guys. Josh Thompson, Wendell Moe, both being targets there, and maybe a swing guy. I honestly think the ideal class for Auburn, offensive line class for Auburn in this portal, would be, you've got Xavier Chaplin. I think they would like to add Mason Murphy, another tackle. I think they would like to add Josh Thompson, who's a swing guy, kind of like Dylan Wade is. He could play tackle if you needed him, but he's more suited for guard. And then they want to get Wendell Moe, who is your prototypical type guard. So they're doing a revamp, an overhaul of this offensive line, getting guys in that they think can play, that they think can compete in the SEC, and not just depending on what they've got.
I do want to ask you about Darrell Robinson, the talented running back from UConn that Auburn was able to land. His size certainly jumps off the page at you, listed at 6'1", a little over 200 pounds. But ideally, how do you think this coaching staff sees him and how he fits in, and maybe a role that he's going to have to replace with a former player that may not be there on that roster as it is?
Yeah, they love Darrell Robinson, and not only from where he's from, at St. Francis, keeping that pipeline going. They just signed 3 guys there. They've got another committed in the 2026 class. They love Darrell Robinson's size, his vision, and his ability to carry tackles. The yards after contact, the 8 yards that we saw Jarquez Hunter have so much success in getting. Really like him. Now, don't get me wrong. Ahmad Hardy, the superstar running back from La Monroe, he was scheduled to visit today. He was going to be pretty hefty, and I don't mean in weight wise.
Right.
I think his price tag was more. I mean, sure. Don't get me wrong. If Auburn wasn't signing Jackson Arnold and they needed a running back, I think they would have went all in on this kid because he was at the top of the board. But I think the value of Darrell Robinson brings to you into that room. The layered depth that Auburn now has that he provides. You've got a senior in Damari Alston. You've got a junior in Jeremiah Cobb. You've got a sophomore in Darrell Robinson, and you got a freshman in Alvin Henderson. So you're probably going to go add Amar Mabson in February, the guy who just reclassified from Auburn High School, who's a stud running back in his own right. So you've layered that room perfectly at running back. So Darrell Robinson brings a lot to you, experience. So they're very excited about him.
All right, Jeffrey, what can you tell us about Eric Singleton, the stud receiver there from Georgia Tech? I know there was some good buzz towards Auburn last week. I know maybe it seems like maybe he's swayed a little bit towards Ole Miss now at this point. So what can you tell us about him? Because that would be a big get for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers as well.
Yeah, anytime a guy goes on a visit, you're going to get buzz from that school. He had a lot of buzz at Auburn because he was visiting. He's got a lot of buzz at Ole Miss because he's visiting. But Auburn, Ole Miss, Miami, LSU, Texas are all in the Eric Singleton sweepstakes. I think he's got another visit left before he makes a decision. But Auburn's got some connections there. Kenyatta Watson recruited him to Georgia Tech out of high school. He's now a support staff. I can't remember his research and strategy or something, but he's basically here to help recruit. Marcus Davis was also part of his recruitment out of high school. So there's some connections there with Auburn. Proximity to home, obviously, is in Auburn's favor there. Kids from Douglasville, so it's West Georgia. Auburn likes where they stand. I know everybody else does too when he visits, but those connections are giving Auburn hope. I also think what Auburn was able to provide to him was evidence, was proof of concept with a transfer wide receiver. You look at what Dre Lambert did this past season. He comes to Auburn for 1 year, and he's I think 35 yards from 1,000 yards receiving. And then I think quarterback was very important, and it should be for these transfer wide receivers. So getting Jackson Arnold, a guy like Jackson Arnold, maybe adding a guy like Ashton Daniels, some insurance will be big for Auburn there. So I'm kind of in this too close to call right now with him. I'd like to see what happens later this week after all his visits are taken. But I certainly feel like Auburn is right there with all the rest of them.
All right, what about C.J. Daniels, one-time Liberty, then most recently LSU wide receiver?
Yeah, like it a little bit better. He is. I think Auburn would like to add those two guys. Those are your top two targets at wide receiver. Getting C.J. Daniels, who's obviously familiar with Hugh Freeze with the offense. Marcus Davis. So he's got a lot of things working for Auburn with him, and just like Eric Singleton, he followed Eric Singleton from Auburn, not personally, but just his visits lined up that he went to Ole Miss, he went to Texas, or was it LSU? I can't remember, but both of those schools, it was Texas. So same kind of schools, all recruiting these wide receivers, but Auburn likes where they sit with C.J. Daniels, maybe more so with him than Eric Singleton.
All right, Jeffrey.
I would like to add real quick on Eric Singleton. Tay Seymour, defensive back, Auburn brought in for an official visit. They're recruiting him, would like to add him. He's a safety from Georgia Tech. He and Eric Singleton were roommates at Georgia Tech. So maybe a 2-for-1 deal there.
Hopefully one wasn't too messy. Hopefully they got along.
Yeah, right. Everybody paid their bills on time.
Yeah, I'm guessing that somebody has done their research, and those two guys, they're buddies. Otherwise, that wouldn't be advantageous.
I don't think we see Seymour in for a visit unless his roommate was Eric Singleton.
That's a good point there, Jeffrey. All right, this is the last thing I have for you. So we find out yesterday, it looks like Josh Aldridge, one of the defensive assistants for Auburn, is going to head to East Carolina to become their defensive coordinator. I just wanted to know, Jeffrey, real quick, if you had any thoughts on that departure and what that might mean for Auburn, schematically, but also on the recruiting trail and the job that he did there.
Yeah, fantastic young up-and-coming coach. We kind of saw this coming. He had been mentioned with North Texas or Texas State. I can't remember. I was actually expecting him to take that job before East Carolina came into the picture. So he is aspiring to be a defensive coordinator at the P4 level. So I understand him leaving for East Carolina to take that job. You go there and you be successful a couple of years, P4 schools are going to be calling you back. But I like that it opens up a spot for DJ Durkin to get somebody that maybe he's more comfortable with. Not that he wasn't comfortable with Aldridge, but now he can go get his guy. I'm looking at somebody who's familiar with Hugh Freeze. I'm looking for somebody who's familiar with DJ Durkin, his scheme. I think Jeremy Garrett, he left last year to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's a name you throw on the list just to keep an eye on, because if Doug Peterson gets fired at Jacksonville, maybe that opens up an opportunity for Garrett to come back. I've been told two different things on him. I've been told, one, hey, this could happen. I've also been told that it's not happening. So, but I would certainly put his name on the list, and anybody that DJ Durkin has worked with in the past. I think his last name is Boo. I can't remember. He was the defensive coordinator up at Maryland, an outside linebackers coach. So he's a guy I'm going to be tracking as well.
Speaking of last names, we did not mention the punter that Auburn landed out of the portal from Oklahoma State. Can you help us with that one? Because I kept going, no, you know what? Until I find out otherwise, I'm going to call him CAC. And then when I saw the social media video, I was like, I'll be damned. That is not the way he pronounces it.
Well, somebody said it's pronounced cock, but it's if you were saying cock, if you're in a Boston accent. So
right,
of course I can't CAC. I don't know.
I said if you do it in an Aussie accent, it's okay. So it's
Yeah, right.
call.
You know, he's got a little brother, and they call him Little One.
Well, there it is. Jeffrey Lee, you were.
Hey, it's always a gamble with having me on. Big
You know
dog.
what? And we know that, and it's a gamble with me every single day for 4 hours. I'm glad that there's others like me out there. He is Jeffrey Lee at JLeeAU live on Twitter. And should we keep our eyes peeled today? Should we be getting any announcements or news that you'll be breaking about guys coming in through the transfer portal?
Possibly. I was going to see what Ashton Daniels has to say this afternoon.
Okay. Sounds good. Jay Lee, we appreciate you. As always, thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and go slay a big one.
Merry Christmas, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate it. That is Jeffrey Lee. He is a character. Known him for 3 decades. He's a character.
That was excellent. And Jeffrey
You didn't
Lee,
gather that.
That's right. And Jeffrey Lee joins us each, as all of our guests do, on the Buyers Right hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. You can't do that, Molly. You can't do that.
Little one. We continue. 3-man front. We'll get to your text. I can't wait to see those. Josh 94.5. So, one cob pipe and a button nose and chimney out of coal. We continue. Season's greetings here from 3-Man Front. We'll try to clean it up. Jeffrey Lee, really good intel from Auburn about the transfer portal, potentially some other names coming across. Ashton Daniels, who is slated to be QB2 right now in that quarterback room. One time, Buford, Georgia, standout at the high school level. Most recently, 2 years, I believe, at Stanford in Palo Alto, but has starting experience and can come in and help solidify that room. Now, if you're keeping track, Jackson Arnold, transfer from Oklahoma. Ashton Daniels would be number 2, and, of course, 5-star out of the state of Mississippi, one Deuce Knight. And then Jeffrey telling us at Auburn at some point going to add another guy because Hugh Freeze wants 4 quarterbacks in that room, but you probably get that done after spring as well. The text line is open, 205-834-9450. Leave it to our very clever Jocks 94.5 listeners for a lot of entertaining responses. How about Mandu in downtown Homewood right now in the month of December? Well, first of all, let me just say, Mandu is electrical muscle stimulation fitness. I've been telling you about it for over a year and a half, and I feel like everybody knows about it, but then I realized that some people might not know about it. If you're looking to feel better, if you're looking for your body to look better, you can certainly try Mandu. Electrical muscle stimulation fitness. You're going to go in, they put you in a suit, hook you up to a machine, sends electric pulses to various parts of your body. I don't know the science behind it. I just know it works. I've been using Mandu for over a year and a half. Damian Mitchell has. So many of our Jocks listeners have taken us up on it. The unique thing about Mandu is the technology, and it only takes 15 minutes. It's a 15-minute workout. You're not spending 6 to 8 hours in the gym where basically that is your only job. And who wants to do that? I actually know a few people that like to do that. I personally don't. Right now, Mandu, sign up in the month of December. Get 50% off. 50% off of your first month's membership. That's Mandu, MANDUU.com, and make sure you tell Paul and the gang that Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line, as many of you have already done. But before we go there, some quick transfer portal news to share with you. So earlier this morning, Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton announced that he was going to enter the transfer portal, had 616 yards and 5 touchdowns last year for the Hurricanes. He has already received a crystal ball prediction to land at Alabama. So you can maybe connect those dots there when somebody goes in the portal and very quickly has a prediction to land at a certain school. So again, Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton entered the portal this morning, and there is already a crystal ball projection for him to end up at Alabama. Maybe a Bama hater can chime in and tell us how good this guy is. All right, BB, text in on the courtesy GMC text line. She says, BB here, I'll check out of the whole portal mess and wait until A-Day. Yeah, I know the transfer portal is stressful time for college football fans. You don't like seeing players that you root for entering the portal and potentially, especially when they land at another SEC school and you know that you're going to have to deal with them in conference. I think a lot of people feel that way. Let's see. Somebody texting in says, do we know where Neil Brown ended up? He has not, as of this moment, landed anywhere, as far as I know. He is still on the market.
Still on the market.
Being let go by West Virginia there. Let's see. Somebody texted in and said they started their in-state retirement at 19 and had their 25 years done at age 44. It's pretty nice. Thank you, Tim. I'm sure that is quite incredible. Nice.
And now, not saying that that's a cush job. You got to work a lot of long hours, and in some cases, you're not being paid like you're a 7A or 6A head football coach in the state. I was just saying from my coaching friends that I envy them in being able to retire at such an early age and then go and do something else. Whether you want to coach at a private school and you double dip, you want to go to another state and double dip. But I think now they've upped the other jobs that you can have and still draw retirement and the money that you can have. And I think they upped it from one time at 18,000. Now it's up to around 30-something thousand.
Oh, wow.
Just adding some more details.
No, that's pretty nice there. All right. Somebody else texting in and says, I saw where Cam Rising at Utah was a high school senior the same year as Trevor Lawrence, and Cam Rising still has 2 years of eligibility left. Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence is what, year 3 in the NFL right now?
And that's what happens when you have multitude of injuries, unfortunately for him in his case.
Yes. Let's see. Ronnie texted in and says, give Cadillac a shot at JSU. Cadillac Williams, the former Auburn interim head coach, now the running backs coach with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay.
Let's see. Doug texted in. He says, as a 25-year-old retired administrator, I can tell you that these coaches work some tremendous hours for not much extra teacher pay. They have certainly earned their retirement. Not going to argue with that. Papa Smurf texted in. He says, why not Jeremy Pruitt to JSU? Well, I do believe that show cause still applies, even if it's out of the SEC.
Yeah, and the length of time on that show cause is just a joke.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's an option. Well, I know it's not an option right now. I don't know if you could revisit that, limit the window. Don't see that being.
No, me neither. Joshua texted in. He says, what about Thompson's Mark Freeman for JSU?
No clue.
Yeah, I don't know what his interest level is in leaving high school and moving up to college. Yes, we have had this joke made. Buster texted in and says, wait until the Auburn transfer punter, wait until that first punt is blocked. And I think you can kind of imagine where the
Molly with her.
You can imagine where that
It
would
is
go.
more
can't
fun in the
hear it.
Boston accent, I will say.
Yeah. With the Boston accent, but
Boston.
he's from Australia, right?
Yeah. Crikey, mate.
Crikey, mate.
Drake texting in about Amaris Williams transferring. He says he was committed to my Gators before flipping to Auburn. Maybe he comes back to Florida. Maybe so. But as Jeffrey Lee said, he is a North Carolina kid, and maybe he wants to go back home. And plus, now you have a pretty big name head coach there in Chapel Hill that might want him on his roster.
Hey, Amaris, just want to let you know we got a lot of exciting things happening. I don't know if you saw me at the basketball game this weekend, but I can have a little fun too. Brian Kelly's not the only old guy that can dance. You ever see me dance? Sign with us. I'll dance for you.
It's uncanny. It's so good. Such a good Bill Belichick.
Where's Jordan? She in the sorority house.
And we have another text coming in saying that they would like to see Neil Brown head to JSU. Have a little bit of a coach swap there between JSU and West Virginia with Rich Rod and Neil Brown. And then somebody else texting in, they say, I, for one, am very glad that the players have the option to hit the transfer portal. Thank you for keeping us updated on everything going on. Well, you're very welcome.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate the nonstop news cycle.
How did we miss out on the cock kid? We needed a punt or two.
Will Bill be here for the next 2.5 hours?
Maybe so.
We'll stick around. Wonderful. Well, thank you for texting in 205-834-9450. Again, that'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. You text it in, and we'll read it.
We'll continue. You're on 3-Man Front and Jocks 94.5. 11:36 here on Three Man Front. Landrum, Conrad, and Molly. We're at Social Taco tomorrow for Deck the Halls with Boughs of Don Don. We broadcast from 10 until 2, but Don Don has arranged something from 1 until 5 there at Social Taco. If you haven't been there to join us, we're going to be up in the terrace, and hopefully everyone will come and enjoy. I know that they're having the ugly sweater contest.
Oh.
I did go and purchase
You got one?
ugly Christmas sweater,
Okay.
which I'm quite proud of.
Very good.
It was the last one that they had available. And it was the only one, going back to what we're talking about out of the transfer portal with Auburn's new punter and his name, but it was the only one that would be okay to wear anywhere, if that gives you an idea.
I want to see what some of the other options were then.
I know, me too.
If that's the only one that was
They all had
acceptable.
references to, ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can.
Yep.
I think I can draw my own conclusion.
Balls
from
on the
that.
tree.
Yeah.
And
Kind of like the text we got last week about you and your situation with the ball hanging and
well, that was legitimate.
all of that. Well, yeah, it's a
I
serious
do
issue
have
that you
balls
have to deal
hanging
with.
from my tree.
Yeah,
5 of them, in fact.
that's right.
And at night, if you drive down our street, you will see them lit up, and they are warm, white balls.
Well, let me tell you about my friends at Easy Hemp Company, because Easy is a refreshing new beverage that's reliably microdosed with 3 milligrams of D9 THC and 3 milligrams of CBD per serving. It's also non-alcoholic and free of added sugars, so you don't have to worry about any day after hangover effects. Plus, it's delicious and a great way to stay hydrated. Easy Hemp Co. is based right here in Birmingham, Alabama. So if you're looking for a social buzz with no regrets, try Easy Hemp Co. It's available at Piggly Wigglies across the state, or you can visit them online at easyhempco.com to have it shipped directly to you or find a location near you.
Okay, we have not talked to any about the basketball that happened within this state teams from this state. One happened in the state on Saturday night. One took place over in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll start with that one, with the early tip-off you had between Auburn and Ohio State. Auburn was concerned about Ohio State and their ability to shoot the three coming into the game. I don't think this is the Ohio State. Inside Ohio State, looked like they were struggling, but I don't know how many folks aren't going to struggle with Janai Broome. 20 points, 20 rebounds. Auburn still, and they cooled off in the second half after getting off to just a fantastic start from the outside. They cooled off just a little bit, but still shot it over 40% from three-point land. They continue to limit turnovers. They continue to shoot at a high clip when they get to the free throw line. I was on a show earlier this morning, and someone who you guys will appreciate, and Bart Heitch, and his time as a player, and not only as a player, but now as an analyst and breaking it down, he was the first to say he believes that Auburn basketball is the best team in the country. A 38-point win over Ohio State and running away with that and just the dominance that they showed in that game. And Auburn can hit you in a variety of different ways, whether it's Broome from the inside. You realize Miles Kelly, the transfer from Georgia Tech, went into Saturday, and he still should be right there, shooting at a 50% clip almost from three-point range. 40% is great. Low 40s is almost unheard of, it seems like, for somebody who's – I'm not talking about the guy that takes 20 a year. But for a guy like Miles Kelly to be shooting it at that high of a clip, and then you look at some of the others on that team, that is a tough, tough team. How they can switch – and how Janai Broome and also Dylan Cardwell can go out on the floor. They can guard guards. They don't make you play lineup roulette. This Auburn team right now, they're checking all the boxes for me, Conrad.
Absolutely. They are playing like the best team in the country, like we were, have talked about the last couple of weeks. And, Tennessee getting that buzzer beater win over Illinois will probably keep them at the top because they are undefeated. But Auburn has as good of a claim to that as any team in the country right now. The good news is you mentioned Miles Kelly. He hurt his wrist or his hand during the game on Saturday, had to come out of the game. Bruce Pearl told John Rothstein this morning that he expects Miles Kelly is fine. It was just an aggravated wrist, and he should be good to go tomorrow when Auburn plays Georgia State. So that's good news for the Tigers there. But, you just look at what took place on Saturday, and in a 38-point win. I mean, you out-rebound the Buckeyes 16-5. Or offensive rebounds, you out-rebound them overall 49-28. You only turn it over 5 times. You have 13 blocks to their 4. You have 18 assists to their 7. I mean, it was just an absolute obliteration of the Buckeyes, and a very impressive win for, again, a team that's not in the top 25, but an Ohio State team that will be in the tournament mix. And
that's still a quad 1.
Yes, and it is a very because it was at a neutral site, it wasn't a home game for Auburn. So that was that's an incredibly impressive win over a solid team, and Auburn continuing to play at an extremely high level. And I mean, you look at, Johni Broome had 17 points and 14 rebounds at halftime. It's just absolutely insane what he's been able to do this year.
Then
He's been the best
Howard
player
coming
in the
off
country.
the guy that was involved with the scuffle on the plane, or when he came in and threw one down, just to show his athleticism. But this is an Auburn team. They'll get out. They'll defend you. You always knew you were going to get a team that plays hard for Bruce Pearl. But this team, they have added the weapons. And just thinking about, we were talking about the Furman transfer, J.P. Pegues, and the impact that he could have. But right now it's tough to find minutes because they're able to play 9, 10 guys, and you're really not missing a beat. J.P. Pegues, I think he logged, 10 minutes maybe in that game? But you're not having to play guys 38 minutes. You can consistently play them in the mid-20s, and there'll be other games when the circumstances dictate that they play more minutes. But, yeah, very impressive. You get Auburn and Purdue coming up this next weekend here at Legacy Arena, and that is a tough ticket, as you could imagine, but that means that you're having a lot of success. Look at the Ken Palm rankings right now. Auburn is number 1. Behind Auburn is Tennessee at 2. Auburn's net rating is a plus 35.01. Tennessee, the second team right behind them at plus 31. So look at the difference between 1 and 2 in Ken Palm's formula.
Yeah, I saw yesterday where Auburn's rating that you just brought up, the 35.01, that is the highest rating that a team has ever had in Ken Palm at this point in the season. So essentially, Auburn is, by Ken Palm standards, they are off to the best start of a college basketball season in Ken Palm history.
And I said it Friday, and we had a listener that disagreed, and they threw out Kentucky. And respectfully, you cannot give me a better resume right now with the teams that they have played and they have beaten, and even the team that they lost to, and go into Cameron Indoor Stadium in Duke in a game that you had trouble getting stops, but you could score. There's not there's not one in my mind that equals that to this point. Now, teams that they've beaten, they could fall off. Hard to imagine that Iowa State team falling off. Memphis, maybe they've fallen off just a little bit, but right now I think that they would probably be the leading vote getter to win the American. And if that's a one bid conference, then they will be in the NCAA tournament. And then some of the other teams that they've already played, it's really impressive what Bruce Pearl's done. And you see now why he was willing to go out and put together this kind of schedule. I mean, go back to Houston earlier in the season. Forgot about mentioning that. They played that at Toyota Center, but that was there in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly taking the Nate Oates model of what Nate Oates has done the last few years at Alabama and scheduling very, very difficult non-conference games. And whether you win them or lose them, you'd obviously like to win them. But, in college basketball, those types of losses don't really hurt you that bad. In some cases, they can even help you to have more quad one games at the end of the year. And it's certainly paying off for Auburn right now. And you look at Alabama and what they've been able to do. They knock off Creighton 83-75 in Tuscaloosa on Saturday night. And going into this stretch where they had 7 straight games against teams that at one point this season have been ranked in the top 25. And, going into it, I remember y'all asked me what was my expectation or my hope for Alabama. And I said 5-2 in that 7-game stretch. And that's exactly what you got if you're Alabama. You lost to Purdue and Oregon, which are respectable losses. And you've gotten big wins over Houston and North Carolina and now Creighton as well as Illinois. So it's been an impressive stretch for them, but Alabama continuing to struggle shooting the basketball. Only shot 20% from 3 on Saturday night, 6 of 30 from behind the line. Shot fairly well from the free throw line, 17 of 22 there, about 77%. Only 11 turnovers for Alabama. But fortunately, Creighton wasn't able to shoot the ball very well either, and Alabama had arguably their best defensive performance of the season. But you had that stretch late in the first half where Alabama finished the first half 1 of 14 shooting from the field. I believe Creighton went on a 20-10 run, something like that, to close out the first half. And This was a game that was looking like it was going to go the route of Auburn and Ohio State for a bit for the Crimson Tide. And credit to Creighton for being able to fight back, and Alabama having those lulls that we've seen them have at times this year, but ultimately good enough to ultimately seal the deal and get another big win there in Tuscaloosa. You had Chris Youngblood, the transfer from USF, who was the American Player of the Year last year. He got his first minutes, played 16 minutes for Alabama, 5 points, made the 1 3-pointer from the corner as they try to get him back into work. Aiden Holloway, not a great day for him. He was probably the player that struggled the most for Alabama. Not a good day shooting for him, 0 for 4 from deep. But Mark Sears, man, 27 points for Alabama, 4 of 7 from deep, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, and then LeBaron Philon adding 16 points as well. Those two guys have absolutely been the best players for Alabama to start this season. And you're sitting here right now where you don't have the resume that an Auburn has, but you've clearly identified yourself as one of the 5 or 6 best teams in college basketball. So both Alabama and Auburn having the starts to the season that we expected them to have, quite frankly, and looking like, in Auburn's case, the best team in the country, and Alabama not all that far behind them.
In Bart, in his opinion, right now, the 3 teams that he would have to win the SEC because of the schedule that they have to play and being so loaded with talent this year, Auburn, Tennessee, and Florida, but Alabama certainly in the mix. You got Kentucky that's certainly in the mix, and there's others. I think it's a 10-bid league. I feel comfortable right now in saying it's a 10-bid league.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen.
It's the best league in college basketball this year.
Certainly minimum, I would say floor 8 teams.
Yes.
If you just get drop off during the season or here in the late part of the non-conference slate. But
what do we have? Do we have 8
job.
last year or
Yes,
9?
8.
8? Okay.
Mhm.
It's hard for me to remember
Okay.
year to year.
I think
Yeah.
it was 8.
It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be a lot again this year. Just means more.
It does just mean more. We continue. It's 3-Man Front here on this Monday. Coming up the top of the hour, we're going to have Crimson Tide Sports Network, Roger Hoover, talking Alabama hoops, but also talking some football portal stuff as well. We continue. Jocks 94.5. 11:54, three-man front. Landrum, Conrad, and Molly. Social taco tomorrow. Our three-man front Christmas party that's been put together by our own Don Don. We appreciate that. Hopefully, we'll see you all tomorrow, where I don't even know what he's got planned. I just know that we will be there. We'll be broadcasting. We hope to see you. We're back on the SEC basketball conversation and just how good this league is, and it looks to be that way here early on. But if you look at, we talked about the Ken Pom ratings, and Auburn is number one and the highest rated ever in the history of Ken Pom. But the NCAA net rankings, Auburn number one, followed by Tennessee, Duke, Gonzaga, Florida, Iowa State, Kentucky at 7, Houston, Marquette, Alabama at 10. If you just stop there and you look at the SEC so far in quad one games, just of those teams represented, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, and Alabama. The SEC, 14-4 in quad one games.
That's remarkable.
And I stopped there. There's more that we could add to that total, but 14-4, the team out of that sampling that has played the least amount of quad one games would be the Florida Gators, and they won their game, and they're off to the 10-0 start, as is Tennessee. But just to kind of give you an idea, the early snapshot of the SEC and what we're looking forward to this college basketball season.
Here's a crazy stat. All right, so through this part of the basketball season, against other conferences, against the ACC, SEC basketball teams, 28-4. Versus the Big 12, what many people would consider to be the best conference coming into this year, maybe, besides the SEC, 14-2 versus the Big 12. 9-7 versus the Big 10, 5-4 versus the Big East. So that's pretty good right there, especially when you look at what the SEC and Alabama and Auburn have done against the ACC and the Big 12. And, historically, when you think of college basketball, those are two conferences that go to the top of the list, and SEC is absolutely dominating them so far this year.
And crazy things can happen. It's not like Auburn is unblemished. We saw and they've had some close games. They trailed at halftime to a Houston team. They came back and won. They trailed at, by 18 to Iowa State, and they won that game in Maui. But even for the team that they put together and they made the Final Four run in 18, 19,
Mm-hmm.
this team seems like it looks more like some of the other national championship contenders we've seen from other programs in the past.
I was about to say, you have a dominant player, but you have depth, and you have a bunch of guys that play unselfish basketball, and they just gel really well as a team when you watch them play. They play very good team basketball, and you have that star player that you kind of need to anchor down. You have the veteran players, as we know, those are important. So Auburn has all the ingredients you need to win a national championship in basketball.
And Alabama's certainly in the mix as well. Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network to talk about it next. Straight up noon here on this Monday. Landrum and Conrad. And Molly. Molly, wonderful job of the decorations here in the studio.
Thanks. I'm glad you
And
like
these
them.
are warm white lights.
The best.
But I
my
like your
opinion.
design a lot better than mine.
It looks very nice.
Yep, you got the inflatable Grinch behind you.
That's right. I do. My buddy.
He's taller
always
than
got my
Damien.
back.
It's like 2 Damiens.
It is like 2 Damiens. I wonder if Damien could like fit inside of that and scare people. If we put it in the hallway.
Maybe so. It's a similar, though, makeup to what Molly had to wear when she was the mascot there at Nebraska for the Colorado Rockies game.
When I was Little Red.
Little Red.
Little Red.
The inflatable.
That was fun. That was stressful, but it was fun.
Is it stressful, really?
Well, it's just I'm quite short, and normally the person that's in Little Red's like 6 foot, so there's a little like lever in his head that you can pull down, and I could not reach it.
What does
So,
that do?
It just like makes his hat move.
I would have
that's
I would
fun.
have
Yeah.
a hard time not consuming liquids before I got into the Little Red suit
I know you would.
because I would have to constantly be going back
Correct.
to relieve myself.
Wait, so could you see out of the, if you weren't tall enough, could you see out of the
I could
eye
still see out
holes or
of
whatever?
the eye,
Okay.
cause like that part's like his shirt, I guess. In the
Okay.
suit.
Okay. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
it
like, that'd be
just-
difficult if you were just kind of blindly wandering around.
Well, and my legs were short. Obviously, my legs are short too, so like a lot shorter than the person that normally is in it.
Well, your hair's long at least.
Well, that's true. So I really had to like muster up my feet to get it to walk. My
Well,
legs.
hopefully for the past 90 seconds, Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network has been entertained with our conversation here. Merry Christmas, Roger. How are you?
Merry Christmas, 3-Man Front. Great to be back with you guys again. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yeah, same here. And for you guys, it's been busy and we got a lot of different things we want to talk about. We were just talking about the inflatable though, so I'll start you with a Christmas question. Are you a big fan of the inflatables? Do you have them at your home? Are you a traditionalist and you say no inflatables? Not doing that.
So far, since we only moved into our house a week ago in Hoover, we've been going through moving hell basically over the last couple weeks. So we have not put up anything outside other than a Christmas wreath that kind of looks like Alabama in the college football playoff with the crimson and the gold. So unfortunately, no playoff gold to go with the TV graphics for Alabama this year. But that's the extent of our decorations of our new house.
Would you
That
like some
wreath on the front
inflatables
door.
if I was to donate some inflatables for you to enjoy at your new home?
Maybe Charlie Brown Christmas style, but that'd be about it. I don't think I want to put anybody else up in front. Maybe Snoopy, Charlie Brown, that'd be it.
Yeah, Snoopy. He was my hero growing up. Okay, I thought I would ask. Moving on though to basketball, this Alabama basketball team and what they've done thus far. Would you say what you expected, better than expected? Where do you go right now when you snapshot Nate Oates and the Tide in 2024-2025 season?
Probably right about where I expected. Alabama, the thing I've been impressed about the most is they've been able to win some games when they've not necessarily played at their best. Got off to such a good start in that Creighton game, then kind of up and down throughout the rest of the ball game. I know Creighton got hot at the end on Saturday, but still, Mark Sears is able to be that go-to player, scoring 10 of his final 27 points in those final 5 minutes of the ball game. Just this group has had a good knack for winning and closing out games. I know the Oregon game was disappointing, certainly Purdue as well, but I feel like this is a group that has been pretty impressive this year. And when they're playing their A game, like I think we saw at North Carolina, it's really hard to imagine teams being able to keep up with them throughout the course of the year. Now, losses are still going to happen, but I think for what we've seen this group go through in terms of the adversity as well, you lose Latrell Wrightsell Jr., but now you're getting Chris Youngblood into the mix after he's been battling that ankle injury, and he showed flashes of what he can be on Saturday, and I think his minutes are only going to go up from here after he played 16 minutes on Saturday. I'm pretty impressed with who this team can be. I think they're still looking for that consistency from everybody involved, but the freshmen have played well. LeBaron Philon's had a great impact, 16 points the other night, and showed that he's one of the fastest players in college basketball. Darion Reed, I really like what we see from him as well as a freshman. So all in all, I think this group is performing about to where the expectation should be, and that's to be one of the elite teams in the country.
So, Roger, you kind of hit on it there at the beginning because this is an Alabama team that hasn't played their best at times this year, but yet they found ways to win more often than not. So what do you attribute some of their issues too. I think the one that sticks out the most to me is just they haven't been a great 3-point shooting team, which is what we were kind of used to under Nate Oates. And you have a lot of guys that came back from last year. And I know Reitzel was a big part of where that was going right before he got hurt. But what do you kind of attribute to some of those shooting woes that we've seen from this Alabama team? Because now we're getting into the season and it seems to be persisting.
Yeah, Conrad, I would point to that as well. Mark Sears the other night was the only Crimson Tide player that had multiple three-pointers that he hit in that game. Just too many really field goal droughts and three-point droughts that we've seen pop up for this team to begin the season, I think is certainly concerning about the offense. The defense consistency has been pretty good, I would say, and just making sure you're ready to go against talented post players is something I still think this group has to work through. And I think, limiting Kalkbrenner to only 18.7 rebounds, 18 points is still a lot, but only 7 rebounds I thought was a really good message from this group about how they can respond against an elite post player, because I think that was still one of the key questions I had, at least going into the Creighton game, based on how the Oregon matchup went at times, and then certainly the game against Purdue when Trey Kaufman-Renn, regardless of who he was facing, Clifford Amori or Grant Nelson, found a way to get to the basket and score. So I think if defense in the post can improve, and then offensively just find a way to get out of these long scoring droughts, I think this team, again, is going to be really hard to beat, but I think those would be the two key areas that I think the coaching staff's focused on before SEC play begins.
Okay, Roger. Well, following up on that then, because that was something else I wanted to bring up and something we've heard Nate Oates mention even before this game against Creighton, but going up against elite players in the post, we know that was a problem for Alabama last year. Cliff Amori coming over from Rutgers was a big part of that. How would you assess kind of the start to his tenure here at Alabama? Because I think he's been a nice player. He certainly helped improve a problem area from Alabama last year, but I think maybe some people haven't gotten to see, maybe he hasn't played as big of a role as we expected with him coming over from Rutgers.
Yeah, and I think it's just all about getting consistency for him. And Coach Oates has talked about the fact that in non-conference play, he is facing some much tougher competition than what he faced with Rutgers last year when he was able to build his block numbers up, his rebounds numbers up. So I think for him, it's learning how to defend without fouling. In my role for home games as a sideline reporter, getting to listen in on every huddle that Alabama has. I can't tell you how often that comes up, not just for him, but for the guards as well. But learning how to defend without fouling. And I think he did a great job the other night. Staying out of foul trouble. Only 2 fouls against Kalkbrenner, defending one of the toughest post players in the nation. I thought it was a really good step forward for him, and he was able to stay on the floor for 25 minutes. I think that's a pretty good sweet spot for him. Then Aiden Sherrill comes in, is able to play 10 minutes. I know didn't shoot the ball well, but he had 7 rebounds in that contest. And then, Grant Nelson has proven he can slide in and play in the post and play well at times. He's got to develop that consistency as well. But this is a group that's still kind of a work in progress, and that's probably part of having a player come in from the transfer portal, learning how to play your system. Everyone thinks about offense with Nate Oates, but for real, it's about defense, and it's playing that blue-collar style of play that maybe takes a little bit of time to acquire. Certainly that was the challenge last year for that group. He was talking about the defense at this time of the year when they were going through that really tough stretch where they lost 3 games in a row against Purdue, Creighton, then Arizona, and then the group, it finally clicked in March Madness. Coaches wanted the defense to be there from the jump this season. I think it's been up and down at times, but it's proven when it's playing well, Alabama can again be one of the elite teams in college basketball.
Is there one particular player that you think you've already seen that Alabama misses the most from that Final Four team from a year ago?
It's hard to say to this point. Probably Latrell Reitzel, just based on the fact that you knew what you were going to get with him. The shooting percentage was always so high, and Alabama was just so much better when he was healthy last year and making an impact. The way that the regular season ended with him being injured in those key games against Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida, I think really took away from what that team could be, and that's why it was such a surprise run to the Final Four, whereas in January, when Reitzel's playing at his best, it wouldn't have been a surprise to anybody for Alabama to be a Final Four team. So I think the fact that you've lost Latrell Reitzel Jr. And you felt the impact of him last year, and now you only get a little bit of him this season, I think that's still a tough blow for this team. Now, again, hopefully Chris Youngblood can really round into shape and be healthy and be that sharpshooter that we've seen in practice he can be. I can't tell you how many times going to practice in Las Vegas when he was doing some limited action, he was lighting up the gym. He's certainly an impact player. So I think that's still remains in progress, what kind of impact he's going to have. But hopefully, if you're able to replace some of the production that Reitzel had with Chris Youngblood, and then just put the ball in Mark Sears' hand and then let him loose. I think he's still somebody that can be one of the best players in college basketball, and I think he's going to take over more games like he did the other night against Creighton. You're going to see that a lot more, I feel like, once we get to SEC play.
Talking with Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network here on Three Man Front. All right, Roger, I wanted to get your impressions real quick of Aiden Holloway. I know he's played a big role for Alabama so far this year after transferring over from Auburn, and I don't think there's any doubt that when he is on, he is one of the most fun players and one of the best three-point shooters probably in the entire country. But there are also those nights where he clearly doesn't quite have the shot, quite have the mojo, whatever you want to call it, that he does on other nights. So what are your impressions of the Auburn transfer so far for Alabama?
I feel like he's making good impact. I know the other night against Creighton wasn't the best shooting performance for him, but it's just so much fun to watch him on the floor with the speed that he has. I think defensively, he's performing at the level that Alabama wants from the jump, and I think that's really good to see. And I just love those stretches in the games where he is on the floor at the same time as LeBaron and Philon, because they're able to just go up and down the floor so quickly, get into a transition offense, have their defense spill over to the offensive side of the game. I've really enjoyed getting to see what he can do, and you mentioned he's a streaky player. He can get that hot streak where he's going to be lights out, and you wouldn't bat your eye at him knocking down 4 3-pointers in a row, something crazy like that. I mean, he's got such great skill set, and I think he's fit in really well to the basketball culture that Alabama has, the style of offense. He has so much freedom in now playing for Nate Oates. It's been fun to watch, and he looks much better in Crimson so far, I'd say.
Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network does a wonderful job with that broadcast in the many different hats that he wears. Joining us here on Three Man Front, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Roger, would be remiss if we didn't ask you about football. First of all, the close to Alabama's season, the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, Alabama not being included in the postseason. Just kind of summarize your thoughts and maybe moving forward with this college football playoff, what needs to be restructured, if anything.
Oh, it was such a roller coaster all throughout the season, even going to the great high, the Georgia win. All of a sudden, you're losing at Vanderbilt the very next week. And the Tennessee game is pretty evenly played between Alabama and Tennessee. Kind of tip your cap to the balls on that one. And then Alabama, it seemed like, had righted the ship with the way they came out and executed it, first of all, against Missouri, and then certainly an impressive performance against LSU when all of us were feeling really good about Alabama's chances, not just to make the college football playoff, but to be in the SEC championship game as well, and essentially be guaranteed a spot in the 12-team field. So that all led us to Norman, Oklahoma, and what turned out to be just a really tough night for Alabama. Just not much could get going in the first half. You get those interceptions and lead to quick points for Oklahoma in the second half, and all of a sudden you've lost 24-3. And I think not many of us were thinking about the playoff at that point. But, with some other losses around the country, you work your way back in the conversation. You go into conference championship weekend, essentially in the field, and then it was such a roller coaster again in that one game, Clemson against SMU. It's like, all right, Clemson's going to blow out SMU. SMU's out of the mix. Clemson will get the auto bid. That's fine. Oh, wait a second. SMU's coming back. Hey, maybe they're going to win. Maybe they're going to knock Clemson out, and then Clemson wins late, and it turns out both get in the field. So, it's hard to argue Alabama being left out, even though there are the good arguments on the other side, the strength of schedule, and look how tough the SEC was compared to some of the other leagues in the country. But ultimately, it was the third loss that did Alabama in, and that's a bitter pill to swallow for the players, the coaches, and of course all Crimson Tide fans. But that's the way it went this year, and it's tough to be left out of the mix. But hopefully, the Crimson Tide can close out the season on the right note. It sounds like the players and the coaches have had a really good approach to what's coming up in Tampa against Michigan. But it's tough not to be part of the playoff mix this year. For me, the only thing I would say about the playoff picture is just the automatic bids, some of the seedings are really, really interesting. It's just hard to wrap your head around Oregon being the best team in college football, getting to go to the Rose Bowl, and yet they get either one of the most powerful brands in college football in Tennessee or Ohio State right afterwards. I mean, that's really tough compared to some of the other paths that like a Boise State or Arizona State are going to get as one of the top 4 seeds. So it's been interesting, I think, following the college football playoff all throughout the year. I've been glued to my radio during the day to you guys to try and make sense of it all, because if I just look at the numbers numbers. I can't figure it out. So it's been quite a roller coaster again, I think, not just for Alabama's season, but I think for all of us trying to figure out what the new normal looks like in college football with this 12-team playoff.
Well, we know part of the new normal, unfortunately, is the transfer portal, and that's something that impacts every team around the country, Roger. And, with Alabama, they have 10 players in the portal as it stands right now. Justice Haynes, Devontae Smith going in the portal over the weekend, probably the bigger names that really stick out to the fan base. So I just wanted to get your thoughts. Or any of these guys that have hit the portal you think really are going to have a negative impact on Alabama moving forward, or were there not really any surprises so far with some of the guys that have decided to leave?
Yeah, I don't really have an insight on what the coaching staff kind of felt like could be coming in terms of players entering the portal. The only two surprises that I really see are Justice Haynes, like you mentioned, because I think he was such a good part of this offense, and what a great not just 1-2 punch, but a 3-punch group that Alabama had on offense with Jalen Milroe, Jam Miller, and then Justice Haynes running the football. And I got to know Justice a lot during his time in Tuscaloosa, and just what a first-class person he is. So tough to have him go into the transfer portal. But also the other one I'd say would be Caleb Odom, just based on the fact that he was able to have a larger role in that offense as the season went along and kind of fit the mold of what it looks like Kalen DeBoer likes his wide receivers to be in terms of their height and their physicality, the way they're able to play, similar with Kendrick Law, who I know entered the portal as well. But that was the other surprising thing to me was Odom, just based on the fact that, maybe if some other receivers had their role diminish as the year went along, it seemed like Alabama relied on him more as this past season went along.
Roger, any big plans for Christmas besides not putting a bunch of inflatables in your yard?
No, again, the wife and I are still surrounded by moving boxes here in Hoover, so we're trying to empty those out and get as many Christmas decorations up as we can. But other than that, it's pretty low-key. I do get to go with the women's basketball team to West Palm Beach this weekend, as opposed to Chris Stewart and Brian Pasnick having to go to North Dakota coming up this week. So I think I won that one, so I'll be playing some golf, hitting the beach this weekend, and then back in Birmingham in time for Christmas, and then before you know it, off to Tampa for the bowl game. For what I'll only be in Tampa probably for 24 hours for that game, quickly in and out. But it will be nice just to celebrate Christmas in the new home and reflect on what's been quite a wild year, going from January 1st to the Rose Bowl to Coach Saban retiring, all the craziness of the Final Four run, Alabama baseball, and the football season. And now here we are in a new house and ready to make new memories in 2025.
Well, congratulations on the new house. I know you and your wife are excited about it. Once you get settled in, we live just across town, so give us a call. We'd like to come and enjoy your new house.
That sounds good. Well, first I need to go to the Taco Terrace. I want an invite there, and then
you have it for tomorrow.
We'll welcome you into the Hoover house.
What is your travel schedule? What is your travel schedule? Are you good tomorrow?
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe not this week, but I just want to go to the Taco Terrace and meet all the characters I hear about on the radio every Tuesday.
Don't put it out there, because now you are officially invited, and our feelings will be hurt if we don't see you there one day.
Roger, I will tell you a week that Landrum's not going to be there, and then you can come visit with us if that would make you feel better.
Conrad.
Let's go. As long as Landrum's not there, Ryan Hennessy's not there, Nick Kelly's not there, I'm in. Let's go.
Exactly. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, the treatment you'll get when you're with me will be much different than the treatment you'll get when you're with Conrad. So just keep that in your back of your mind.
That is fair.
On top of that, if you listen to this program, the reason Alabama lost to Norman, Conrad Van Order.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
No, I know. I listened plenty. I remember listening to that Chris Stewart interview on Wednesday and being like, I just got a bad feeling about this. Conrad's going to the game. This is not looking good.
Well, Roger, I'm not going to any games next year. I've already decided. Not happening.
He is the human.
And you're not going to Tampa, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. No.
Okay.
Far away.
No, it's got to be 10 hours in the back of a truck for him to go and watch an Alabama.
I don't think I'm allowed within, about 750 yards of the Alabama football team, if I'm being honest. So.
Yeah.
Okay. No Tallahassee for you next year either, Conrad.
No, definitely not.
We got to start the season on the right note.
That's right.
He is Roger Hoover, play-by-play, sideline, host, all of that good stuff at Roger_Hoover on Twitter. Roger, Merry Christmas, my friend. If we don't see you tomorrow, we'll see you soon. Stay in touch.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. Thank you for having me on. See ya.
You as well. Roger Hoover, awesome dude. On the Buyers Right hotline for all of your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. We do have news out of the transfer portal. Give you an update as it pertains to the Auburn Tigers. Also, your phone calls are welcome. 800-239-WJOX. That's a horse trotting.
That is a horse trotting.
Next to my Bill Belichick. That is my go-to during the holiday season. Impersonation.
The Bill's better.
That's Conrad. My name's Landrum. That's Molly. Molly with the most holly when it comes to the Christmas season.
Have a Molly Jolly Christmas.
Have a Molly Jolly Christmas. Roger Hoover joining us, Crimson Tide Sports Network. Also, Jeffrey Lee from On 3, Auburn Live. Jeffrey Lee posting, and we will update you on one potential target for the Auburn Tigers. On 3 is now projected 100%. Look out for Tay Seymour, former safety from Georgia Tech, who he told us was roommates with Eric Singleton Jr., top target out of the On 3 transfer portal, considering Auburn, also considering Ole Miss. I think he said maybe LSU, Texas, and Miami in the mix too. But he said that interesting just to note that those guys were close apparently in their time there in Atlanta at Georgia Tech, and they roomed together. But it looks like Tay Seymour will be added to that Auburn class, and that would give them 5 incoming out of the transfer portal. Amaris Williams, talented former 5-star on the defensive line, has put the paperwork in to get into the portal, and Jeffrey said that Auburn trying to work to get him to take his name out of the portal. Such is life right now in college football.
Yeah. A couple more portal notes to pass along. We shared this a little bit ago, but if you missed it, Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton has entered the transfer portal, had 616 yards and 5 touchdowns receiving last year for the Hurricanes. He has already been projected to commit to Alabama, so a potential wide receiver addition there for Kalen DeBoer in the Crimson Tide coming out of Miami. Malik Murphy, a quarterback that had visited with Auburn and believed that it was going to come down to maybe him or Jackson Arnold. Now that Jackson Arnold has committed to Auburn, Malik Murphy is visiting another SEC school, and that would be Kentucky. So hopefully he does not continue the trend of quarterbacks whose careers go to die in Lexington, Kentucky.
Ooh.
Because didn't go very well for Brock Vandagriff last year, didn't go very well for Devin Leary. I guess it worked kind of well for Will Levis, kind of, but I mean, that's a whole another situation there. But yeah, Malik Murphy is visiting with Kentucky, so the Wildcats might have a new quarterback there. And then also earlier this morning, John Mateer, the quarterback from Washington State, who we've talked about some, was going to be very highly sought after if he entered the portal. He has.
Don't we just assume he's going to Oklahoma?
Portal. I would think so, because his offensive coordinator left Washington State to take the job at Oklahoma, so that would make also clearly have a void there at quarterback. So I think that would make plenty of sense.
Mac to the phone lines, 800-239-WJOX. We continue our 12 days of a Don Don Christmas. Hey, Don Don, what's up?
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm ready for tomorrow, Landrum.
Oh, I bet
y'all ready
you
for
are.
tomorrow?
Yes.
Hey, did Jeffrey Lee, I didn't get to hear you. Did he say he was coming?
No, he did not. He's going to be in the woods tomorrow, Don Don.
Yeah, well, that's him fishing and hunting, buddy.
That's it. Yep, and Cruton.
But I'm gonna get up there early, and we're gonna have a packed house, y'all.
Okay. Well,
We're looking forward to
been inviting people too, and they've asked me what to expect, and I said I have no idea. But
well, I told you the other day, Bridget and Michaela and Taylor and all the crew. Oh, thank you. All the crew at Social Tackle, they got a good plan, and I don't know the amount of the gift certificate, Landrum, but I know they're gonna have a prize for the ugly sweater.
I got an ugly sweater that I bought this weekend.
Me too, buddy.
I'm not eligible. I'm not in the running. I will let somebody else win that prize, but I wanted to be a part of the festiveness.
Yes. Anyway, buddy, I'm at work, buddy. I just wanted to call to tell you I'm excited about tomorrow, and I got a lot of people coming. But the Amaris Williams thing, I did not expect that.
I know. It kind of blindsided us, considering you didn't let us know before it happened.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see everybody tomorrow, Landrum and Conrad and Molly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Don Don. We appreciate it.
For a second there, I was like, oh, Don.
Yeah. PG, what's up?
I don't know. Following Don Don's scary, but
sorry, buddy.
Hey, we're going to have the fire marshal there. There are going to be so many people. I think I'll be probably if I get there any late, I'll be outside under the umbrellas, I guess.
Get there early. Get there
Yeah,
early.
I mean, how early is early though? You start to wonder.
I don't know. I have no idea. I never know what to expect on Tuesdays anyways. I'm always pleasantly surprised at how many different folks and different strokes and different folks that come up there.
So you've invited some people too. So
Well,
maybe
I did invite our pastor at church, and I think he's got a lunch thing, but I told him
PG.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine. No, we've played. Look, here's the thing: we've played golf together, and I have actually consumed a couple of 12-ounce cold beverages in front of our pastor, and he was fine. He didn't condemn me to hell. We're good. So
okay, so no shots of Patron for me.
Yeah, you probably want to leave the Patron on the shelf. Yeah.
Hey, but talking about drinking Patron, after watching Sunbelt Billy in the portal. Boy, we got us a punter though from Michigan, and I'm sitting there.
What is his last name?
God, I don't even remember. I was so discouraged. He's the starter punter. Even the punter gets under an NIL, I guess. So it's Michigan starter. I don't even look. I was so disturbed that we ain't got one single quarterback backup and no single receiver. We were supposed to with Lagway get all these receivers. We ain't got nobody. And we're losing everybody. So, we're about 19, 20 of them already, portal. So I just don't know what I don't know. We're going to be worse next year, and he'll be back on the hot seat.
Well, you know what? There's one good thing about next year. That buyout will be reduced. So.
Yeah, man. And it's $16 million almost in the NIL. What are they going to spend it on? Can they? I know, the guy from Kentucky, I wanted real bad, Silver. That nose tackle, defensive tackle, but it looks like he's going somewhere else.
They're waiting for all the after Christmas deals, PG. They're going to go on a shopping spree here in about a week.
You think so, Connor?
Maybe. I hope so for your sake.
Yeah, because we're going to be playing water boys. You may want.
Hey, as long as Lagway stays out of the portal, you're going to be all right, I think.
Yeah. Well, my God, if he goes, I'm going to have to pull for some other team.
I think you're good. He's already in the Gatorade commercial. He's stuck there.
Oh, all right. That's great. Well, guys, I'll try to dress up a little bit tomorrow where I won't scare everybody. So, but I don't think I'll have the ugly sweater on, but I will dress up my normal hairdo, with my orange hair and stuff, So it'll be a little different.
That's ugly enough with that puke orange and whatever neon redneck blue you guys wear as your colors.
Well, at least we ain't got the Tennessee colors.
That is true. It is a better shade of orange than that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll give you that. Hey, Don, I almost did it. Golly. PG, thank you.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
No problem. Thank you.
Almost did it.
You did.
I kind of did it. I just said one.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't say the other. Doesn't count. 12:31 as we continue here on 3-Man Front. A lot of texts coming in. Conrad's going to get to those texts. Transfer portal news. Anything that comes across the wire, we're certainly going to let you know about that. We do have the coach Bill Clark, some interesting things to share on NIL, the transfer portal that he's hearing, and Auburn, Alabama moving forward, and a snippet of the college football playoff. It's hard to believe. It begins on Friday. 3-Man Front and Jocks, 94.5. 12:35 here on 3-Man Front. New AP Top 25 college basketball poll is out. Tennessee remains at 1. Auburn is at 2, followed by Iowa State at 3. Kentucky at 4. Duke is at 5. Alabama comes in at 6. Florida at 7. Kansas at 8. Marquette at 9. Oregon is at 10. Buzz and the Fighting Texas Aggies come in at number 12. Number 14, Oklahoma. Number 17, Ole Miss. And conveniently, there were no more SEC schools. That sound means that there is breaking news here on the show. For more, we send it to Molly Robinson, who is always wearing a star on top of her head.
Aww,
Hello, Molly.
Thanks, Landrum.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Well, I have some news coming out of SEC Mike, who is a friend of the show.
Oh, boy. What is this?
So SEC Mike released his early 2025 SEC football predictions following schedule release from last week.
Can I just guess that SEC Mike, given his disdain for Hugh Freeze and how critical he's been of Auburn in the past couple of seasons, he has the Tigers going 4-8.
Do you have a guess,
Oh
Conrad?
man, I was gonna go like 7-5.
Okay,
Okay.
7-5 maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to guess because I'm looking at it.
Okay.
But if you're an Auburn fan or an Alabama fan, I would buckle up. And if you're driving, be careful. I'll start from the top. So he has both Georgia and Texas going 11-1.
Okay.
Okay. Nope.
It's not too far out there.
Not surprising. The team's going 10-2. SEC Mike has South Carolina,
Okay. I see the optimism.
Yep.
Yeah.
and the other 10-2 team is a team from the state of Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
but
Alabama.
it's the Auburn Tigers.
What?
He has
Auburn?
Auburn going 10-2.
Is that really his account, or is that somebody posing as him with a different handle? Have we made sure of that?
No, I just double checked. It says host of that SEC podcast.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, I think he had Auburn going pretty high last year too.
I don't remember what he had.
I don't remember.
I just remember
having him going that high because
him being very critical of Hugh Freeze on this radio show.
That is true.
That's kind of my last.
and
thing.
basically that Hugh
impression.
Freeze would be on the hot seat. And as it turns out, Hugh Freeze is
He's on
nobody's
the hot
really
seat.
talking about it, but if you replicate what you did this season, you're definitely going to be on the hot seat.
Right. So I know, Conrad, you're probably wondering, well, where's Alabama?
Oh well, they're probably going 6-6.
Well, I'll just tell you this. He has 4 teams going 9-3, and those teams are Tennessee, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
Okay. I mean, I think I totally understand why that would be your projection right now. No problem.
We have
with that.
not done this equivalent on this show, but given how wrong I was with the past, with last year in particular with Auburn and projecting them to go 8-4,
Mm-hmm.
I can promise you I will not be projecting them to go 10-2.
No, I don't think a lot of people will. But it's good to see the optimism. Or I'm assuming
Part of
a
that
lot
is just because
Jackson Arnold.
I've been so wrong about them.
Well, yeah, and it's hard to.
And Auburn fans have asked me not to project them to finish above.
Yeah, it's the same reason that sometimes I pick Alabama to lose, because people believe that when I pick Alabama to win, that it somehow curses the Crimson Tide. But it does. 10-2, I guess according to Landrum, it does. 10-2, though. I mean, I'm not saying it's off the table, but that is that's going to be difficult. That would be quite an accomplishment. I did see
What the heck? Let's pull up the schedule.
I have it right in front of me.
Wait for me.
Okay.
Golly.
I will say I did also see a article from a local sports writer this morning that predicted that Auburn would make the college football playoff before Alabama does again.
Wow.
So.
Well, while Landrum's getting the schedule put up, I will tell you the rest of them. So, at 8-4, SEC Mike has both Sun Belt Billy and Brian Kelly.
Okay.
So Florida and LSU. He has Mizzou going 7-5. He has Oklahoma going 5-7. He has Arkansas, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt going 4-8, and Mississippi State at 3-9.
Okay.
That's the rest of the SEC.
All righty. All right, let's start with Auburn's schedule. You ready, Conrad?
Yep.
Born ready.
At Baylor in Waco.
I'll give them a win.
Okay. Go win there. Ball State.
Win.
South
Okay.
Alabama.
Win.
At Oklahoma. It's going to be an emotion game.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll give them the win for now.
Okay. At Texas A&M?
Loss.
Loss.
Georgia?
Loss.
Missouri?
Win.
Yeah.
At Arkansas?
Should be a win.
Yeah.
Kentucky? Win.
Should be.
Win.
Well, yes. They should have been, yes. You're right. At Vanderbilt, Diego Pavialis.
Yeah. Win.
Yeah.
Mercer?
Win.
Alabama?
Coin flip.
Are you there?
No, I will not be there.
Okay, then Alabama wins.
Okay. So that's a coin. Okay. But so going through that,
So all of that, what was that, 9-3?
that was 9-3.
Oh, God.
I think a lot of it does. Okay. But a lot of it comes down to this, right? On paper, we can look at a lot of these games. Do you think, what are the odds that Auburn slips up between Missouri, at Arkansas, Kentucky, and at Vanderbilt? That's a 4-game stretch. Do you think that they get through that undefeated? Because on paper, you can look at that and it's pretty easy to say,
now,
well, yeah.
I'm just going to go on paper that they get through that undefeated.
Okay. Well, then, see, there you go. So there's your path. But I think a lot of us are looking at some of these games and going, okay, well, last year we looked at, oh, well, these are kind of coin flip games for Auburn, and, they lost a lot of those games. And so maybe they win those games next year. That's very possible. But, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Missouri, like those are all games you should win, but I don't think any of us are going to be surprised if Auburn loses
Now let's
one
go
or even
through,
two of those
Let's
games.
go through Alabama's schedule.
Okay.
Florida State and Tallahassee.
Win.
Louisiana Monroe, win.
Win. Yeah.
Wisconsin at home.
Yep. Win.
Win.
At Georgia.
We'll give them a loss. I'll say loss.
All right.
Even though
3-1.
Georgia can't beat Alabama, but that's fine.
Vanderbilt.
Should be a
4-1.
win. Yeah.
At Missouri.
Win.
Tennessee.
Win. It's
It's at home.
Bryant-Denny.
Yeah.
South Carolina at South Carolina.
That's a tricky one. That could be a coin flip game for me.
All right, so we'll circle that one as coin flip for you. LSU.
In Bryant-Denny again, that should also be a win.
Oklahoma at home.
That should be a win.
Eastern Illinois.
Win.
Win.
And then Auburn at
Coin
Auburn.
flip. So yeah, again,
Coin
you're sitting there
flip.
at 10-2
So
or 9-3.
Okay.
And that sounds
The question is, does that get you in the college football playoff next year?
10-2. Well, 9-3. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, the schedules aren't that unfavorable. I know a lot of people were talking about how, I heard some people say this is Auburn's most difficult schedule in years. And I personally don't see it that way. I think it was harder when you were in the, when we had divisions and you were having to regularly play Alabama and Ole Miss and LSU and Texas A&M every single year. And you're playing a lot of those teams, but and still Georgia because of the rivalry. So,
well, yeah, when you look at the strength of the league and what we're projecting this year, and nobody saw South Carolina coming prior to the start of this year.
No.
Nobody saw what Vanderbilt was able to do. But you don't have Tennessee. You don't have Ole Miss. You don't have LSU. You don't have Texas on that schedule. You don't have South Carolina on that schedule if you're Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
So projecting out, now I thought that it was favorable this year, but as we move forward, should be even more favorable next year with that 4-game stretch that you were mentioning. And then what does Oklahoma look like? How much better are they?
And that's the part of it, yeah, is what are some of these teams going to look like? But again, I think it's for a lot of people going to come down to, we can look at a lot of these games and say, okay, well, on paper, Auburn should be the better team. Auburn should be able to win. That can be true, but can you actually win those games? And that's, I think, a lot of what this year is going to come down to Hugh Freeze, because, while people might be frustrated if you lose to Georgia or Alabama, those are understandable, correct? But you don't want to go on the road and lose to an Arkansas team or lose to a Missouri team that's maybe, coming down another peg from where they were 2 years ago. Those are the kinds of losses you have to avoid. And if you avoid those, if you're Hugh Freeze, you're going to have a really special season next year. But you have to prove that you can win those games. And up to this point, he has not proven that.
Now, can you imagine turning your sports knowledge into real cash fast with Prize Picks? It's never been easier. You can download the app today. Use code WJOX to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today. Use code WJOX. Get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win. This football season and beyond, Prize Picks has got you covered. So sign up today. Play just $5. Get the $50 instantly. That's right, $50 guaranteed. Download the app. Use code WJOX to get the $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. It is Prize Picks. It is easy, and it is so much fun. Interact with your friends as well and turn your sports knowledge into something more than just bragging rights. Must be 18 or older to play. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
205-834-9450. That's how you can get on the courtesy GMC text line. Your texts are rolling in, and when we return here on 3 Man Front, we are going to get to those. So keep it locked right here on Jocks 94.5.
12:49. To you and yours, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays season here from us on Three Man Front. Shows all week long. Live programming here. Then next week gets a little tricky. I will not be here. Conrad, I don't know if you will be here. Molly will be here.
I will be here.
Pat will be here. Pat's going to be back with us tomorrow. But then we have time to be off with our family. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, following
Correct.
day
We will
after
be
Christmas, and we're back live the following Friday.
correct. We will be live next Monday and next Friday. We will be taking Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday to be with our families, just like each and every one of you.
I've got some shopping. I've got to do a lot of shopping, but I like the
You like the rush of being in the crowd and
it gets my adrenaline going.
Yeah. Well,
Told you what happened last year.
Well.
That one particular store.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that when you ask someone to try on something?
That was not when I asked somebody to try.
No,
on
Molly, that was
something.
not a one-time thing. That has happened multiple times, from our understanding. But
I'm just waiting for somebody to ask me to try something on for them.
whatever that. Just like to imagine you looking back at them like, do you want me to try something on now too? Like,
Yeah,
can
seriously.
we be a mutually beneficial here? Well.
Got some skinny jeans. You want to see how I look in them? Let's do it.
Well, we have some good news coming out the transfer portal for the Alabama Crimson Tide. That would be Alabama tight end Danny Lewis, who had entered the portal last week, exactly a week ago today, actually. He has now withdrawn his name from the transfer portal. So he was
cold.
the third or fourth tight end this year for Alabama, but definitely a depth piece that you want to bring back with Oots and Dupree leaving from that tight ends room. Very good, more of a blocking tight end there in Danny Lewis, but a guy that certainly will play a role for Alabama next year. So good to see that they were able to work something out there and get him out of the transfer portal. But as we said before the break, we do want to get to your text on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450 if you want to chime in with your thoughts on anything, whether it is college hoops, Auburn, Alabama portal news, the upcoming college football playoff. We would love to hear from you. We have someone texting and says, Landrum's a Belichick imitation. Y'all can say you have an exclusive interview with Bill Belichick and we would never know the difference. Might have to try that.
Yes. We'll do it.
Let's see. People continuing to
hate on you. I saw some of those.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to those. But people continuing to have fun.
Being such a doo-doo head.
Have fun with the last name of Auburn's new punter. From
It
Oklahoma
is
State.
officially. It rhymes with croc.
Crikey.
Crikey. Is it Hudson or Hunter?
It's Hudson.
If it was Hunter, the punter with the last name of Cock.
Sounds like a historical documentary there.
His name is spelled Kaak. And I tried on Friday. But after they released the social media video that he would be attending Auburn, he did say that you pronounce it the other way.
Jimmy texts in, he says, Conrad admitting to being restricted within 1,000 yards of Alabama football team gives off bad vibes. Well, I got to do what I got to do for the program and the fan base.
But he's saying that it gives off bad vibes, like you did something highly immoral.
Which I did not. It is simply because
your name should be on a list somewhere.
Yeah, and it absolutely is not. But people like to think that there's a correlation between my attendance and, well, that's not. Yeah, that's not something we're going to joke about. But yeah, when it comes to my attendance.
There's this Alabama fan who's really drunk in our hotel lobby, and you're not going to believe what he just showed us.
Oh, that's not me.
Stay away from him.
Let's see. We have some people texting in, not very thrilled with SEC Mike's projections for next year. If you missed it, he has Auburn going 10-2 in 2025 and Alabama going 9-3. Let's see. Here we go. Somebody texted in, Conrad, could you be any more hateful towards Auburn? As usual, your crimson is shining through. I actually thought I've been pretty nice about Auburn today. I don't think I've said anything negative.
Have you thought about maybe in 2025 being more objective?
No, because I call it how I see it.
But you see it from crimson glasses always.
I mean, I certainly have my affiliations with a certain program, but I think that,
you're not a professional.
Well, people don't like when I say things critical of Auburn because they think that I'm just saying it because I'm an Alabama fan.
Molly has no problem being critical of Nebraska.
I have no problem being critical of Alabama.
I've been critical
certainly
of
been
Nebraska
critical.
since like 2017, so. But it's all out of love.
Bless.
Well, see, I can't win because I criticize Jalen Milroe as I've had many times this year, and people say I'm a bad Alabama fan for criticizing. So, I call out Alabama. I'm a bad Alabama fan. I call out Auburn. I'm a
You're a man
bad
with no,
Auburn fan.
So basically, you're a man with no country.
Apparently, I guess so. I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that how they do
No,
things?
but you're not neutral. You just tag team up with Damian. Who's he pulling for today?
That's a good question.
He is wearing a Titans jersey, I'm pretty sure. So.
Oh, yeah, that didn't go well for him yesterday. Poor
no,
guy.
it did not.
Poor guy. Well, it doesn't most Sundays.
No, you're right.
With that team right now. Yeah, pretty rough. Let's see. Tim texts in and says, Conrad, you could say the same things about Alabama. Everybody penciled in wins for Alabama against Vandy and Oklahoma last year. I guess talking about when we were going through the schedules. And that's very fair. Yeah, I mean, again, it goes both ways.
I agree, Tim.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. Let's see. Scott says Oregon barely has to show up next year. Just look at what their schedule is. I'm going to assume it's the same as this year's where you played Ohio State, and that was essentially it. So, yeah, good from them. Oh, okay. Somebody was mad that I laughed about Auburn going 10-2. I mean, sorry. Do you really think Auburn's going 10-2? Like, if you do, that's great, and I'm happy
not going to pick them
out.
to go 10-2.
Exactly. But if you're mad at me because I laughed at somebody projecting Auburn to go 10-2, what in your right mind makes you think they're going to go 10-2 next year? They very well may, and I will eat crow. But I mean, let's be honest. And then
Conrad's next eating challenge.
Oh, I'm so
crow.
excited.
Well, from fish from the sea to the air. That's how I like to do things, I guess. And then somebody texts in and says, Conrad went to the Texas game and Alabama lost. Conrad didn't go to Austin and Alabama won. Is there a coincidence? I think not.
No.
That is not a coincidence whatsoever. I will say, actually, the Alabama-Texas game that was played in Austin where Alabama won 20-19, that was actually when I was on my bachelor trip. So that was a very stressful way to start off my trip before I got married. But, hey, I am 0 for, well, actually, I'm 1-2 in my last 3 Alabama games. I went to the Arkansas game last year and Alabama won, but that one was a little sketchy as well.
In my last Alabama games, I'm 4-0.
Okay, so we're going to send Molly to every Alabama game next year, and I'm going to go to 0.
But Auburn, in the last few I've been to, I'm like 1-2, I think.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, maybe I need to go to the Auburn games.
Molly
Molly
start
goes
going
to
to
Alabama
Iowa games.
Cheer on Hank Brown.
Yeah, because the one Iowa game I went to was when Nebraska won. So
There it is.
We figured it all out.
A guy who's got it all figured out, Coach Bill Clark. We'll talk college football playoff, the craziness of NIL and things that he's hearing from other coaches in the industry. Bill Clark is next. The Monday edition of 3-Man Front rolls on Jocks 94.5, JocksFM.com, and the Jocks 94.5 app. 1 o'clock, three-man front. Landrum, Conrad, and Molly. Pat is back with us tomorrow. We broadcast live tomorrow from 10 to 2, and then beyond, well, not broadcasting, but hanging out, enjoying the holiday get-together there in the Taco Terrace, Social Taco in Homewood. Once again, tomorrow, if you can be there, we would appreciate it. We love getting to know and continuing to get to know all of our great Jocks listeners. We've got the NFL coming up tonight. You can hear the NFL right here on Jocks. The battle for the Midway. Chicago, the Bears at 4-9, taking on the Vikings at 11-2. Who would have thought this Minnesota team would be at 11-2 at this point in the season?
And with a win tonight, they would be tied with Molly's Detroit Lions atop the NFC North, which I know, Molly, I'm sorry, that was a tough game for you to watch yesterday. That was an excellent football game.
It was.
Between the Bills and the Lions. The Bills won, but
I
yeah.
hate the outcome, but I will say Jared Goff balled out, and the Lions defense is incredibly banged up. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, that was one of the better NFL games I've seen, though, and hopefully tonight's will be another great game there with Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold facing off.
And you get another game, if you're not into that one, you get the Falcons taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, right?
That is correct, and if you're a Falcons fan, you'll get to watch Desmond Ridder, but fortunately it won't be for your team. But the Raiders announced earlier today that Desmond Ridder will be their starting quarterback tonight with Aiden Holloway or with him out with an injury. So, yeah, you're going to get
Holloway?
What was his last name? It's Aiden something, something. I can't remember.
O'Connell. Hope he's
Aiden
better
O'Connell
tonight than he was for Alabama.
Sorry.
in Coleman Coliseum, shooting the three on Saturday.
Complete brain fart there. Aiden O'Connell. Thank you, Molly.
Also, we do have college basketball coming up. We got a few games tonight, but none in the SEC. But tomorrow, we got a pretty good slate of games. You get number 1 Tennessee hosting Western Carolina. Florida is hosting North Carolina. That should be a lot of fun. Actually, you get that one in Charlotte. Also, Southern taking on 17th ranked Ole Miss. Clemson is taking on South Carolina there in Columbia. Central Michigan, Michigan State, Jacksonville State, Missouri, Georgia State, and Auburn. Auburn, another tune-up there at Neville Arena before they take on Purdue at Legacy Arena coming up next weekend, or this coming weekend. And you get Stetson and LSU tomorrow as well.
Also, a pretty solid bowl game tomorrow. Memphis and West Virginia tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. That's going to be on ESPN. That should be a good one.
Interesting with the news coming out of the state of West Virginia that Marshall's not going to be participating. And for that, the coach, Bill Clark, we're going to talk all things college football, portal, and more. He's presented by Donahue Chevrolet every single Monday here on the show. Coach, how are you? Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing great as well. Do want to touch on this because we haven't talked about it, but we got the Army-Navy game, and you have dissected both of these squads. Not really surprised that Navy was able to find a way to win, but with how much success they were able to have in that game, Blake Horvath, exactly what we expected. But your thoughts on what was just another tremendous atmosphere with all of those guys that have committed to not only defend our country and what they do, but just the pageantry and the history of the rivalry between those two schools.
Yeah, you said it well. I don't think it could get any better. I thought the announcers did a really good job, but I mean, just all the pregame, our country and these guys, what they're doing. I mean, you just to go in there, you're not dealing with NIL and all these other things. I mean, they're doing it for the love of the game. I mean, these are guys from around the country that chose to serve and love to play. And it really doesn't get any better than that. And then, of course, all the discipline, and we've talked about that many times on this show and my show, the discipline that you see, and it fits in how they play, how hard they play on defense, how sound they are, the offense that they run that is a disciplined offense, special teams, all the above. And, of course, the pageantry and, it was just such a great atmosphere. The weather was great. I know it's a bucket list for so many people to get to go see it. Now, from an X and O standpoint in the football part of it, I think getting Navy's quarterback Horvath back well, I studied him very extensively early in the season. And you remember we talked about it, how good I thought he was. Then he gets banged up. Getting that extra week, and it almost became a negative a little bit for Army to play in the championship game from this game standpoint. And then Navy get this extra week on them, but it was Navy all the way, and obviously Horvath was unbelievable.
Coach, I know that over the last couple of weeks we've talked to you a little bit about Auburn and their quarterback situation, but obviously the big news today here in our neck of the woods was Jackson Arnold committing to Auburn over the weekend. seemingly cementing himself as their quarterback one for 2025. So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that decision there by both Jackson Arnold and Auburn, and how you see this working out with Hugh Freeze next year and what is essentially a make or break year for Auburn.
Yeah, I think obviously if you watched the Alabama game, you were super impressed with him. We know his pedigree and his background. The question I will have is, does Auburn take this guy and really do, run to his strength? I think obviously you will, because he's the guy. But I mean, this is the guy that you look at the Alabama-Oklahoma game where they ran him quarterback design run. Now, as we know, there's always a chance for a little injury there, and I'm sure Hugh, Coach Freeze loving the RPO game. That'll be a part of it. But designing this offense to fit him, which is really kind of a quarterback-centric run game with throws, et cetera, which a lot of people do. But I think design around him now. That game against Alabama, he was very impressive, and they designed the game plan to fit him, and I know that's what they'll be trying to do at Auburn.
When you look at some of the struggles that Auburn had on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line, that was an issue in pass protection at times for the Tigers, and in the past, really dating back even pre-Hugh Freeze and his tenure there. But they pick up a guy out of Virginia Tech, and I'm not asking if you've seen the film, but he's 6'6", 320 pounds. His name is Xavier Chaplin. He was a third-team All-American. I think in all the games that he's played over the course of his career, he's given up a total of 5 sacks, 2 most recently this year. When you saw Auburn and some of those problems that they have, how could bringing in a seemingly like sure fit, effective guy at that position help that offense next season in your eyes?
Oh my gosh, I used to go to the O-line before the game and the D-line, and I'd say, hey, it starts up front. I mean, and it really does. We know we cannot win without skilled players and without quarterbacks, but that dominant O-line, the O-line that can protect the backside of the quarterback, the O-line that'll come off in the run game and open up holes. I mean, that it goes without saying how important it is, but really I really think if you go and let's look, I mean, we could go and look at Urban Meyer, what he did. And granted, I think Ohio State probably at that time had always had good O-linemen, but D-linemen, they really made the change. But I think O-line I think everybody knew that was a problem for Auburn, and getting a guy just like this goes along with the big quarterback pickup was a huge get.
Talking with the coach, Bill Clark, here on Three Man Front, as we do each and every Monday at this time. Coach, so I had kind of a big picture NIL question for you, just with your experience as a coach and relating to these players and dealing with a locker room. So are you surprised that now that we're a few years into NIL, that there hasn't been some sort of I guess a market correction of sorts on how much some of these guys are making? Because I just continue to be blown away when, I know there was a receiver from Texas Tech that recently transferred. He had 8 receptions this last year, and he's asking for $700,000 in the portal, and he's getting it. It doesn't seem sustainable, and I know we've talked about this a number of times, but these guys that aren't having a lot of production, and now they're looking to jump to another team, and they're asking for these ridiculous dollar amounts, and they're getting them when the production doesn't match that. Are you surprised that those numbers seem to continue rising? And do you think there's a market correction in the near future with all this NIL stuff?
Yeah, good question. I think there's probably never been a time, and I said this earlier, never been a time in the history of the game where if you want to be good, you can make a correction to your roster quicker. And if you don't, you can get bad really quick. But I think, we're in a market right now that's very it's obviously unpredictable, but you've got people out there with a lot of money that are now having access to these programs, and coaches are feeling the heat and the pressure. Now these people are saying, hey, we want to be part of it. And a lot of the guys with a lot of money have wanted to have more of a hand in programs, and they've really been kind of kept at arm's length with, okay, you can help us build an indoor, you can donate the scholarships. And now they really feel like they can really give money and directly affect these teams. So I do feel like sometime in here we're going to have a market correction, but we haven't seen it yet.
Visiting with Coach Bill Clark here on Three Man Front. His visits are made possible throughout the college football season and beyond by Donahue Chevrolet. All of our guests join us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Also, host of the Bill Clark Show. It appears here on these airwaves. You can hear it here on Jocks at 6 o'clock on Thursdays prior to the NFL on Jocks on that night, but also a variety of different platforms. Something you touched on last week, and for our listeners who missed it, first of all, shame on you listeners, but you touched on NIL and some of the things that you're hearing from particular coaches that are involved in it right now, and one of them is a disturbing trend. Can you kind of readdress that and explain to everyone some of the things that are being missed and maybe flying under the radar with some of these guys and who is attempting to represent them, air quotes?
Yeah, I think professional representation is what we get. We get professional representation, but we're getting so many folks who are taking a picture of an office and getting to these kids saying they're a professional representative, and they're promising these guys, especially guys that don't have a lot of, and I'll say this, whether they have not a lot of parental involvement or just can get to these guys and get them to and say, no, we're going to get you food from local restaurants and a little bit of cash throughout the year. Really do none of that, but go around and start marketing them to all these teams. And that would seem like that was okay, but they're really not telling them the truth on who's even actually wanting them and getting these kids to jump in the portal. And then some of these teams have no real idea about who they are. So it's kind of like, hey, come get in this portal, and then they're going to try and find them a team. So it's just unscrupulous. Obviously, we're all seeing the percentages that they're taking from some of these kids. I mean, that's where we've got to get some regulations. That's where the unscrupulous nature, the wannabe agents, it's scary, and I hate to see it.
So, Coach, keeping on with the NIL stuff, this is something I've seen reported in a couple of cases with individual players, and I had never really heard of it until this year. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it. So I've seen some reports that players, when they're making these demands going in the portal, one of the things they're starting to ask is, hey, if I get injured, I want to be the one to make the decision on what my playing future is. Essentially saying, hey, if I feel like I'm banged up and I don't want to go, then I'm gonna hold myself out, and there's nothing you can do about that. What do you think about that potentially setting a dangerous precedent moving forward with players maybe having their own control over their injury availability and things like that?
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and we always talked about wherever I was at, especially at UAB, that we had unbelievable medical folks, and their whole world as a medical professional is they've got to protect these players. And I think obviously we needed to take steps on concussions and research. I think I started to see some of that really at the end of my career, where if a guy felt like he was tired or maybe a little banged up, he started talking about not wanting to practice, or and I think that's really we're seeing. And once again, player health and safety is first and foremost. But when we go from an actual injury to I'm tired, or I'm worried my status of maybe going somewhere else could get knocked, it's really scary. It's just and that's what I say, when you take all these great things we have, and now you take some of the things that were problems, and now they're being magnified. And of course, you're seeing guys also demand playing time. Well, if I'm not guaranteed to be in first, second, and third downs, then I'm gonna put myself in the portal. Well, then you need to go in the portal, because if you're good enough, we'll leave you in on all three downs. Let's say you're a defensive end or whatever. But if you're not, we're going to sub you to get a better pass rusher. And I think when you start dictating coaching to coaches, we got a real problem.
Coach, we do have bowl games that crank up tomorrow. A couple of teams that you're very familiar with just from our discussions here on the show. We got Memphis and West Virginia there in the Frisco Bowl. But I wanted to ask you about the unusual situation with Charles Huff leaving Marshall. There was no contract extended. I don't know Marshall. You don't have to comment on this. It's always struck me as just a really weird place, just based on the governor and Doc Holliday, the former coach there, and kind of how things shook out. But Charles Huff takes the Southern Miss job. You got staffers taking it. You got a mass exodus of players, it seems like, in the transfer portal. They don't have enough people to go and even compete in a bowl game. So they go and they find Louisiana Tech to play there in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. But just your thoughts on that situation. So now you've got guys that chose to remain in that program, on that roster, that have worked their tails off to have the opportunity to go and play in a bowl game, and now you can't even go play.
Yeah, it's sad. First, obviously, we're big fans of Radiance Technology, and they sponsor my show, and that's a great bowl to be in. But I think it reminded me so much when I heard that of what happened to us in COVID. If you remember, in the 20 season. South Carolina had their whole team, had COVID, I guess. When that game got canceled on us, and and I guess if you have that many people going to portal, that's probably the shape you're in. It's amazing that we could get ourselves in this shape, a self-created wound or friendly fire, whatever you want to call it. It's amazing to me that leadership has not done a better job with this situation, where things that are avoidable. And of course, I think something's going to have to be, we talked about the opt-outs, and now we got the portal, and it's sad that, the way that went down, the way it could continue to go down.
Yeah, remember that time that Southern Miss during the COVID season decided that they had COVID, but people inside of their building maintained that really nobody had COVID. They just didn't want to play. Just some of the great things we got during the pandemic year. You don't have to answer that. We continue our conversation with Coach Bill Clark. Joining us here, presented by Donahue Chevrolet, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Coming up Friday, we get our first game of the college football playoff in the expanded field. Indiana at Notre Dame Stadium, the primetime game. I think this is more fascinating with the matchup and more intriguing than a lot of other people are giving it credit for. Notre Dame is a better football team as I've watched them go along than I ever thought that they would be this season. But this Indiana team, having the extra time to prepare, you're now, all the naysayers are telling you, well, we saw you against Ohio State. We saw that, you revealed yourself. Your thoughts from the periphery of this game and how it could shake out for us on Friday evening?
Man, I love this game. I mean, Friday night, South Bend, it's just, man, it's going to be it's so good. The proximity of these two teams, Indiana, I mean, what a great year they have. I've been so impressed with Notre Dame defensively, especially all year. It's just, to me, that it's just a great matchup. The nighttime, the weather. I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I think from what I've seen from both squads, it's going to be a close game. And I truly think it's a great matchup. It's going to be fun to watch.
Also, the games that we have on Saturday, SMU at Penn State, the whole storyline of James Franklin and lack of success in big games. Clemson at Texas, and also Tennessee and Ohio State. I think Clemson and Texas could be better than what people are bargaining for. That staff and what they do, and Dabo very well. But also SMU and Penn State, certainly nothing to write off. Just a quick 30,000-foot view of the slate we're going to get Saturday.
Yeah, I think Clemson and I think you feel like Texas is still the better team, but I think you got the big letdown from Texas. I say the letdown where Clemson is so excited to be there. So. Does there get a little bit of psyche there of a letdown versus so happy to be there? I still think Texas is a better team. I think it just makes for an interesting dynamic. SMU, the big second half comeback, what they do offensively, they're very dynamic. And then, of course, Tennessee, Ohio State, just a great matchup where Ohio State's got a chance to maybe vindicate themselves after the huge loss. So tons of great storylines on all those.
All right, Coach. Well, I'm not going to back you up into a corner. People have been asking us because there are college football head coaching openings going on. There's one in this state. There are others around the country. But if there's anything that you would like to throw out there to anyone listening that is concerned, you can certainly do that. Or you can just say, hey, Landrum, thanks for the time, and let me tell you about Donahue Chevrolet.
Well, Jacksonville State, love those folks. Not going to Jack State, and it's not anything against them. Just as some other ones, and that one was one I gave a ton of consideration to because it's family and home. But I'm there to help them find the next coach as an alumni, and tons of friends there. So wish them nothing but success. And y'all are still stuck with me for a little while anyway. So,
well, I need my Bill Clark time. I'll be honest. I'm a lot better for it, both personally and professionally. So selfishly, we're glad that you're still going to be around.
Well, and wish them nothing but the success they've had. And that'll continue because they do it the right way, and they're committed, and there's great synergy from the president down. So there's nothing going to be but great there. And of course, thanks to Donahue Chevrolet and sponsoring this show and my show, Thursdays, and as we say every week, they've got all kind of great deals. They're going to treat you right. They're honest, and tons of year-end different kind of deals there. And of course, they take care of first responders and teachers and students. And I think they got a deal for about anybody. So go in there and check our guys out at DonahooChevrolet.com.
Coach, we appreciate it. We're going to have our holiday edition of the Bill Clark Show this week, and I don't know how festive you get. You like to wear the Dr. Pepper hat. Would you be willing to put on a Santa hat for the episode? Is that
yeah? I would definitely put it on very briefly, but I would put it on.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, Coach. We always appreciate the time. We'll see you on Wednesday, and we appreciate our friends at Donahue Chevrolet. Thank you.
Yes, appreciate you guys.
All right. Coach Bill Clark, once again, Donahue Chevrolet brings you the segment on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
Well, portal news for both Alabama and Auburn. What is the latest? We bring it to you next on Three Men Front. $124 here on your Monday afternoon. Conrad Landrum and Molly with you until the 2 o'clock on Three Man Front. His thoughts on the latest. Hoover joining us at 12 o'clock of the offseason changes there. Clark joining us here just a few minutes ago. The elephant in the room involving the state. He said he wishes working to help them find issue, but he is happy. Clark Show joining us here on Monday. Wishes them nothing but the best and letting people know where he stands.
Yeah, and I'd had some private conversations with him, and nothing as of this weekend about, hey, Coach, pinpoint, are you interested or whatever? And I was going to give him the opportunity if he wanted to, and I certainly appreciate that. And we have people on the text line that have been asking about, what about Coach Clark back to Jack State, and appreciate him addressing that.
Absolutely. Well, each and every day here on Three Man Front, we do have our daily Twitter poll question of the day, which is brought to us by our friends at Twin Peaks and Hoover. Get on into Twin Peaks and Hoover because nobody does happy hour like they do. Whether you want one of their 29-degree man-sized drafts, you want to check out their wonderful cocktail menu, one of their craft beer options, all of those are going to be available for you. And they do happy hour like no other there at Twin Peaks and Hoover. Also check out some of their new menu additions, whether it's the quesabria taco. Also check out some of their new menu additions, whether it's the quesabria tacos, some of the new wing sauces they have. All of it is great there at Twin Peaks and Hoover. And our daily Twitter poll question of the day, we just asked who's the best SEC Heisman Trophy winner of the last decade, and it hasn't really been particularly close today. Your options were Derrick Henry, Joe Burrow, Bryce Young, and Jaden Daniels. Joe Burrow with a 51% tally of the vote right now. Derrick Henry in second with 43% of the vote, and Bryce Young in third with 4%. Jaden Daniels in last at 2%. So not a lot of love for the recent quarterbacks from Alabama and LSU.
What if you had thrown in Cam Newton, though?
Well, okay, and
or
that
Tim,
would have
Tim Tebow.
And those would have swayed the voting, but that's why I went with the last decade, just trying to get more recent winners. And I know, again, Devontae Smith was left out. He would have been the fifth one, but I don't know if he would have fared much better than Bryce Young or Jaden Daniels. So I think that's kind of...
Just for anyone wondering why you omitted Cam Newton's name, I wanted to give you the opportunity.
I appreciate that.
To clarify why you didn't, and it was not your Crimson Tide fandom.
Yes, believe it or not, it is not because I hate Auburn like some people think that I do, which I do not. It was because we did these from the last decade, not from the last 2 decades or what have you. But we did mention some portal news coming down for both Alabama and Auburn. Let's start off on the plains of Auburn. If you missed it a little bit earlier in the show, we announced that Georgia Tech safety Tay Seymour, somebody that Jeffrey Lee had talked to us about, that he is committed to Auburn. And of note, he was roommates with Eric Singleton Jr., the star receiver from the Yellow Jackets. So maybe that is part of what gets Eric Singleton down there on the plains of Auburn. But we also have, just coming down a couple of minutes ago, Miami, Ohio cornerback Rayon Strader has signed with Auburn. He had 53 tackles and 17 pass deflections this past season there for Miami, Ohio. So a big addition there, and a guy that you would expect is going to contribute for
Rayon.
Auburn on the defensive backfield.
I like it.
Yes, very good news there for Auburn. Some unfortunate... It's not officially news. These are still rumors as it stands right now, but not great news if you're an Alabama football fan. I would just go ahead and preface it with that. But Charlie Potter, who is on this show, regularly covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. He recently posted about a rumor that had been circulating about a player by the name of Jalen Mbakwe. If you remember the Clay Chalkville product, a 5-star recruit for Alabama last year. There have been some rumblings going around that maybe he would be a player that would potentially enter the transfer portal for Alabama. And according to Charlie Potter, he has said that they have heard the rumors. They think that there is certainly a possibility that he enters the transfer portal. And reportedly, somebody has already made a 7-figure offer to Jalen Mbakwe if he were to enter the transfer portal to head to a different destination. So something to keep an eye on there. If you're Alabama, that would certainly be a big name and somebody that I think Alabama fans were counting on being around for the next couple of years, and also best friends with Ryan Williams. So that is some potentially unfortunate news there if you are an Alabama fan. But that is the latest transfer portal news, and we will continue not only today but throughout the rest of the week to update you on all of that. 205-834-9450 get you on the courtesy GMC text line, and you have been texting in throughout the show. And now we head back. So I actually did want to revisit this. So Scott had texted in earlier when we were reading text, and he had mentioned how easy Oregon's schedule is for next year, to which I said, well, yeah, they're probably going to play Ohio State. And that'll be that. They don't play Ohio State next year. They play Penn State. They also have Indiana, so 2 college football playoff teams. But Northwestern, Minnesota, Washington, Oregon State. A bit of a cakewalk for the Ducks next year. So I think we would well, you are the Big Ten expert, Molly. You would know. So
to be fair, it's not like there's a whole lot of options there in the Big Ten to give you a gauntlet of a schedule.
That is a fair point. I think it's maybe more
Based
of an
on this
indictment
year.
of how the parity in the Big Ten has.
But you got times are changing. You got possibly a Hank Brown-led Iowa offense.
Elite.
That's so exciting.
Nebraska and whatever they're doing there.
Hey, Dylan Raiola's coming back.
He's coming back.
He's got another offseason of working with Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
Barry Odom led Purdue.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something.
Jonathan Smith will be in his second year at Michigan State.
You're trying.
Michigan.
I applaud the effort.
With who's
their $12 million quarterback?
Bryce Underwood.
Yep.
Ohio State will probably go 10-2 again.
Yes, and
Ryan
lose to
Day.
Michigan
They probably
again.
lose to Michigan again.
And Ryan Day will not get fired, which
Right.
Ross
Again.
Bjork came out last week and said that he is not firing Ryan Day. It doesn't matter what happens in the playoff. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens if you get blown out by Tennessee at home in the first round. Is that going to change your tune a little bit?
USC, we're going to put way too much stock in whatever comes out of LA this offseason.
Nah, Miller Moss isn't there anymore. I don't care. I'm checked out.
UCLA, they'll still be there in LA.
I was about to say, hopefully their coach remembers that they are still in LA. Yes.
Washington turning the corner, maybe getting back to relevance.
I appreciate you trying to
Illinois?
to prop up the
And
I
that
like this
boring
Big
brand of
Ten love.
football.
yeah.
Mhm.
He's trying. I
Hey,
appreciate it.
Illinois went
Rutgers, they look
9-3.
sporty at times.
The Fighting Gianos.
Yeah.
All right, Pat B texted in. Going back to when we were going through the Alabama and Auburn schedules for next year and kind of just a quick rundown of what we think might happen. Pat texted, he says, Auburn goes 7-5 next year. He has losses to Baylor, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, and Mizzou.
No.
I would be shocked if some of those were losses. But again, as somebody else pointed out, I think we were all shocked when Oklahoma and Vanderbilt beat Alabama this year. So you never know.
Look, for the Auburn fans' benefit, I will be closer to Auburn going 7-5 with my predictions than I would 10-2.
Yes. All right. Somebody chiming in about what I just mentioned with Jalen Mbakwe. He says that he believes there are reports that the team that has offered Jalen Mbakwe is Ole Miss. So that would not be surprising because, yeah, that's just if you've been following the transfer portal and Ole Miss.
Do you
and Lane
really
Kiffin,
believe in Lane after what their schedule was this year? The amount of talent that he was able to get out of the portal. Are you being able to sell those kids that you can get to a college football playoff?
Money talks.
Maybe so.
I think it's more about the dollar amount.
You think it's
at
more
the end
about
of the day.
campus life over there?
I will just say this. When I was in high school and I was deciding on, I went to one of these events where they have different representatives from different SEC schools to kind of tell you, hey, this is what your life could be like if you go to school here. Every school I talked to started off with academics, except for Ole Miss. They were the only school that started off with girl to guy ratio.
Yep. Girl to guy ratio. You're going to be able to party your butt off here, Conrad.
Yep. That's exactly what they went for.
You can major in party planning. Which.
And I stayed true, and I went with my crimson colors, and I went down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Yeah, you did.
I wasn't even, never mind. I'm not going to share that.
No, that's fine.
I was just going to say Alabama was actually not where I wanted to go to school. Believe it or not. I know that's going to shock a lot of people. It just ultimately
Auburn said no.
worked. That's good. People can have fun with that one. Someone texted in and says they wanted to let me know that, my alma mater, Hayden High School, has a new football coach, Coach Stover. Congratulations.
Nikita
Stover, yes. Best of luck to the Wildcats moving forward. Someone texting in about our talk with Bill Clark. They say, yes, I agree with Coach Clark. I enjoy these playoff games. Some have grumbled and griped all along the way, but having a 12-team playoff has been very good for the sport. I think we can say from an entertainment standpoint, it has certainly done a good job.
And Alabama's not in it. It sucks for us locally as far as content. It's always more fun when they are, but I'm still going to watch the college football playoff. Is everybody else?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of course.
Making sure
Absolutely.
you guys hadn't opted out.
Let's see. A couple
I knew
more
you had
texts here.
Molly. It was more.
I'm about to say,
him.
don't look at me. Look at
It's
him.
like, oh,
Wait, there's games being
the
played
world's
before
gonna
the
end.
ReliaQuest Bowl? I thought that's what we were all getting excited for.
We are excited. No, ReliQuest. I was thinking Birmingham Bowl. Birmingham Bowl.
See, I got them confused the other day, too.
Yeah. Georgia Tech and Vandy. The battle of the Smarties.
That's right. We have an Ohio State fan texting in. He says, the Big Ten is so top heavy, but after you get past the third or fourth best team, there are no good teams. That's the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten. And that's coming from an Ohio State fan.
SEC.
I don't disagree.
And then wrapping up here, we have Mark from Coleman who chimes in and asks, do you have score predictions for Alabama and Michigan? Not yet. I would definitely lean Alabama in the game. I don't have a score prediction for yet. And then he asks, do y'all think Jalen Milroe leaves for the NFL? I would say yes. I shared it earlier. Alex Scarborough, who covers Alabama, he wrote a story earlier saying that there are multiple reports indicating that Jalen Milroe will announce he's going into the draft after the bowl game, which he is playing in. Do you think he goes to the NFL?
Yes.
I think that's can't turn down the money.
And I have Alabama by a field goal.
Okay. Well, there you go. There you go, Mark from
Because
Coleman.
I don't know what that Michigan, well, we don't know what Alabama's roster is going to look like. Yeah. I don't think it is going to be as high scoring as maybe it was once going to be on Alabama's side.
I would agree with that. They also announced that Donovan Edwards is their star running back. He is not going to be playing in the bowl game for Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, but appreciate all of you texting in on the Courtesy GMC
Was Kalen
text line.
DeBoer able to get all the Alabama players that enter the portal like Kenny Dillingham and say, hey, guys, I understand what you're doing, and that's fine, but we still need you for one more. Stick it out.
We'll see. Hopefully, well,
I'm
at least Kenny Dillingham's going
to
to the playoff, and
this
is a little different.
A little bit different.
Yep. That's the world we live in now.
It is. We will get to your phone calls, more of your texts. We still have questions from Molly. Molly Marinates, the first of the week. That and so much more. 3-Man Front and Jocks, 94.5. 140 here on Three Man Front. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Christmas presents out of the transfer portal being opened by coaches, coordinators, staffers alike. Some staffs saying farewell to former members of their team. That right there is something you could hear bellowing, I'm sure. They're out of the cathedral in South Bend, Indiana, and Notre Dame. And Conrad, that is the segue I will provide you to let Alabama fans and college football fans alike know where one former Alabama football player says he could be heading.
Yeah, we'll talk about a Hail Mary, am I right? That's going to make way more sense here in a second. Devontae Smith, the defensive back from Alabama, he entered the transfer portal over the weekend. It is now being reported by Matt Zenitz with 247 Sports that he will be transferring to Notre Dame. He will be a member of the Fighting Irish.
Well, for a while, it looked like we were going to get that 7-10 matchup in the college football playoff.
I was about to say.
So if you can't get the matchup, why not just go in and join them?
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, a good landing spot for a player that is certainly going to play a big role, I would imagine, for Notre Dame. And, I feel bad for Devontae Smith because he's battled so many injuries in his career, and that, flared up again this year, unfortunately. And he played well when he was available. But yeah, good for Notre Dame. Good for Marcus Freeman, who, speaking of Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman actually got a 4-year extension over the weekend. So he is now signed for the next 6 years there at Notre Dame. So congratulations to him on a job well done this year, minus the NIU game. But he has the Irish back in the college football playoff. So very good to see there. I've also been told by a little birdie that apparently the Mbakwe Ole Miss offer is pretty legitimate, and maybe Alabama is looking at it as a situation where they could get a player that maybe they view as comparable for a lot less money.
Maybe so.
So maybe that's the situation. But yeah,
by the way,
keep an
the
eye on
Notre
that.
Dame football schedule for next year, you're at Miami. You get Texas A&M at home. You play Purdue. You're at Arkansas. You get Boise, USC, Navy, at Boston College, North Carolina State, Syracuse, at Pitt.
Oh, they're going to be right back in the mix like they are this year, I would imagine. That's pretty favorable.
That's from here on out.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman getting the new deal. By the way, we haven't talked about it, but FSU's Mike Norvell deciding to give back $4.5 million.
Yeah, I think FSU Dave is probably happy about that. I thought that was an interesting move.
If I'm doing the math, why not give back $9 million? And so you get $1 million for every meaningful game that you won this year.
Yeah, and I was just trying to figure out, so with him essentially giving back $4.5 million, does that go to NIL, I'm assuming, is what they're going to want to use that for?
I think so,
using that to build up the roster for next year? Because
they sure need it.
That's a decent chunk of cash right there, $4.5 million.
You give Gus $4.5 million to get some offensive weapons.
You could get about, half an offensive lineman and 2 third-string running backs for $4.5 million, probably?
You get 3 John Rice Plumleys. Can't do it, man. I'm out of practice since he left. We'll go to your phone calls. Let's go to Steve in Birmingham. Hey, Steve, welcome in.
Yeah, I think that we're going to call this the Brian Kelly rule from now on, all the coaches that are going to give back money to go into the NIL.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question, because I think there's probably litigation concerns, and it's probably just conjecture, is it not, like Ohio State supposedly spent $20 million. Is that right?
Supposedly they had, $20 million, $21 million at their disposal, and that it was all placed somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, but that's just conjecture, because litigation, they don't want that information out there. Do they? I wouldn't think.
Some schools are different about it, but I think that Ohio State was one that prided itself in getting that number out there to get recruits nationally to pay attention, that they were
you
paying
want
a lot
money?
of money.
Come to Ohio State. Yep.
Yeah, I think they're one of the schools that wanted it out there.
Well, I see your point on that. I can only imagine it's just so interesting, and I like Clark's insight. So I wish he could tell a lot more. I wish he would give a little more insight behind the curtain on what goes on. But to the point of it, with Mbakwe, Alabama, if they hadn't didn't do this, and everything's under contract with these kids on this, obviously, because they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
They should have put, if they didn't put Williams and Bakwe, because they were using the brand that had the A right behind them on their podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't put them under contract to say, if you're going to do this, you got to be with us for 3 years. Then that's not very smart to me. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know, because we don't get to see these contracts, but I don't know legally.
I think forcing a player to stay within your program is probably a good way to not get players to want.
Well, I just don't know legally how that works out with some of these. I do know that there's a signing bonus. There is an amount that most of these guys get up front, and then after that, let's just say $20,000 a month. There with direct deposit to the bank of your choice and your checking account or however it's set up. And then as long as you're enrolled in school and actively a member in good standing with that football team, then you're going to get that monthly deposit. Yeah. But after that, I think that once player withdraws, there's probably language in the contract where payments cease and then you transfer.
Yeah.
So this will be the first introduction these kids have to the term NDA, because you have them sign that. You just said it getting out that kids have to do this and that.
Yeah.
Well, you get them to sign the NDA and say this is binding. And this is for our good and your good, for the whole of the team, whatever you want to say. But anyway, I'm sure it's becoming the minutia part of it is getting more and more detailed as we go along with this rodeo. The last thing, seems to me, and this is where I'm going with Ohio State, if Auburn is spending $20 million, because I think Yellowwood's opened up the checkbook apparently. I wonder if they're going to disclose how much they're spending on NIL. You think they are?
No, I don't. Thank you for the phone call, Steve. And it's not just Yellowwood. It's a lot of people that have contributed, and I don't know, but again, in the NDA.
And I think a lot of what he's saying, it's a nice idea to think that you would have a player that said, I'm committed to being here for 3 years.
But as tough as the competition is now to land the services of a player, that makes its rounds. And then that is ultimately the anti-recruiting against your school recruiting tool that they can give. That used to be the age thing with Nick Saban. Now can you imagine, Kalen DeBoer, look what they're making kids do.
Well, I was about to say, we're in an age of player power, and doing anything that restricts their ability to make money and, move about the country freely and transfer that's going to be a non-starter for a lot of kids.
What's a starter for all of us, and we should have started earlier? It's a question from Molly. Questions from Molly. Yeah, I'm okay. It's 5 questions from Molly. We will try to answer. I'm not drunk, but might have just had a medical episode on 3-Man Front. 152, Alabama defensive back Devontae Smith. He is officially signed with Notre Dame. Just doesn't seem right. Conrad's going to be okay. We're all going to be okay after Molly asks these questions. This is what we call Molly Marinades.
I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind.
It's time for Pat
Molly
Ponders.
And as always, Molly Marinate / Pat Ponders is brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Go check them out at courtesybirmingham.com.
She like shuffles her shoulders. And she goes, Molly Marinades.
Molly Marinate. It's more fun. All right. I have a couple of Heisman questions.
Ooh, okay.
So first of all, with the Heisman, were you at all surprised that Genty won the fan favorite vote?
No, and I think part of that was probably some of the negative pub that's come with Colorado and being kind of the underdog and playing at Boise. My opinion.
No, I agree with that. I think it's a lot of the narrative surrounding Colorado, and Travis Hunter's gotten a lot of hype for a long time, and Ashton Genty kind of came out of nowhere for the general college football watching audience. So, no, I'm not particularly surprised by that.
All right, I had the same reaction, so. All right, so we all saw that Lil Wayne was at the ceremony.
Yes.
He was there with, Dion and Travis Hunter and Shadur.
Who Travis Hunter was not aware of, apparently, until recently.
Right. So I ask, if you were a finalist and you got to bring your favorite singer, who would you bring? If you, Landrum, if you were a Heisman finalist, who would you want there?
I don't really have a favorite singer. Go ahead, Conrad.
See, I would love to take Kanye, but that would just be so much controversy that wouldn't be worth it for it. No, I don't think he would be allowed to attend. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll take Drake.
Okay.
That'd be kind of cool.
I'd take Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
So.
You take Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I was thinking of just getting eyeballs without a controversial person to come and to hang out.
Bring Adele with you.
Yeah, or
That would be a fun
Celine
one.
Dion. Just take a page out of Conrad's book.
That would be
Or
good.
not Conrad, Damien's book.
I was about to say Damien would be all
I
about
do
that.
like Celine too.
That would be very cool.
All right, next question. This one kind of relates back to the Pat Ponders question. It's a little different. Over the past 20 years, we're going to go 20, okay? Who do you think has been arguably the best non-quarterback to win the Heisman? So non-quarterback position.
Ooh, in the last 20 years.
See, I just did 20 because there really hasn't been that many.
I mean, Derrick Henry, for the amount of yards totes that he had in a season, was pretty incredible.
I would probably go Derrick Henry. It would be between him and Reggie Bush.
Those
would be the two.
That's why I was kind of leaning to.
Reggie Bush over Derrick Henry.
That
I'll
one's
go
tough.
Reggie Bush.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll put on my crimson glasses.
I didn't
I'll
have
take
my
Derrick Henry.
list, and this is so tough for me now, just remembering year-to-year Heisman.
Yeah. I was about to say Reggie Bush was like 2004, 2005, something like
Right.
that.
I think it was about 20 years ago. I think
Yeah.
it was
Fire
04,
another one.
05. Well, it's going to have to be the last one. So this past weekend, I was watching, some Christmas movies. And I know we all have a favorite Christmas movie, but I was thinking, what is your favorite, classic animated Christmas movie? Either, a Rudolph or Frosty the Snowman.
You know what? I didn't see it until later on in life. My mom used to have the book that she would read to her class, but Polar Express. I really like the Polar Express.
That movie creeps me out.
A little bit. Yeah.
The kids look dead
Yeah,
inside.
well,
The way the
if you get
animation
over-
is.
If you get over that.
See, I also like the Polar Express.
It's also kind of funny that Borat is the conductor of the train.
Very nice.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Sacha Baron Cohen. I like the Grinch, the old animated Grinch, the original.
I like that one too.
That one's my.
I watched
my
The
favorite.
Grinch last night, the Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey one.
I didn't realize that was 1999. Hard to believe.
The Jim Carrey one?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was like mid 2000. Man, that makes me feel old. That's a good one though. Molly wasn't even alive.
I wasn't even alive. I wasn't even a
Wasn't
thought.
even alive. Maybe Jim Carrey will be at the Christmas party tomorrow. Do you think Don invited him?
I don't know. You're invited. Social Taco tomorrow. We broadcast 10 until 2, and then there'll be fun, ugly sweater contest. I don't know. All the details. Just show up and find out. From all of us to all of you, happy holidays. Paul Feinbaum is next.